Don't go there.
You are a technocrat. I mean, you can speak to whether or not it was appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur. Would you have done that as a permanent secretary?
Politicians get the information from wherever source that they can.
That's going to be the extent of your answer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
There's a lot of noise around the data protection bill that, in my respectful view, is not warranted.
I was one of those making noise, and it's simply because I was concerned about that specific section 33.
Don't go there.
Are you going to be offering yourself up as political leader of the party?
I see you've called me here for much more than diplomatic passports. I don't mind that.
Don't go there.
What is the relationship like between you and your leader, Dr. Mitchell, your boss, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm not sure how to explain how to answer this question at this time. I prefer not to answer.
Don't go there.
They said that you approached the bank for the loan before the election and that it only materialized after the election. There are also conflicting reports around the quantity of monies that were received. What is the reality here?
People try to extort the truth and to make all kinds of things about it. I just stay quiet. So if you notice, I was really and truly quiet about the whole matter.
Except with not with the New Today newspaper. The New Today newspaper reported on this. So I'm not sure you were quiet on this. Go ahead, Honorable. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, right?
Don't go there.
I think we just spoke at length about the regularization framework. So
yes, we did. But let us talk, Prime Minister. Let us talk about the workers who are dismissed.
The Bubb Report. We go there.
A pleasant good morning to our viewers and listeners, and we welcome you to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. We're happy that you can join us for yet another installment of the program. And you know the usual deal. As you're coming into the room, please remember to like and share this week's live stream. Please like and share this week's live stream. We do have a very packed program for you, so we will get on with it. But before we do, I just want to bring to your attention the cause of Mr. John Crow Alexander. For those of you in Grenada who know Mr. John Crow, and those of you in the diaspora who knows that Mr. John Crow has been an avid Grenadian philanthropist in the diaspora. He's someone who has engaged in prolific fundraising as well as other donation building for Grenadian causes at home, specifically at the General Hospital, and raising funds for hospital services in Grenada, whether that is included getting wheelchairs for Grenadians at home, getting crutches, getting other hospital equipment that is needed. John Crow has been in the vineyard doing that work. As we understand it, unfortunately, Mr. Alexander, he suffered some cardiac issues on his last visits to Grenada. And so I know that fundraising efforts is now on to support his repatriation to the United States for him to be able to get much needed care. I know that there is a GoFundMe happening. So folks, if you can support Mr. John Crow Alexander, as I understand it, he was journeying in Grenada to support some lighting, because you know John Crow is also in the television production business, if you will. And so I understand he was down in Grenada at the time of his heart attack, doing work around lighting courses for Grenadians and technicians on the back end of things, supporting them with television and live stream lighting. So we do want to wish Mr. Crow and his family, Mr. Alexander and his family, best wishes at this time. And we do want to wish him a speedy recovery. And of course, if you can support Mr. Crow's efforts right now to get him back to the United States so that he can get the much needed care that would be required. Unfortunately, that Grenada is not in a position to provide. That would be very helpful. And just one announcement: the Bubb Report was honored last evening by the Rotary Club of Grenada, we received a humanities award from the Rotary Club of Grenada. So we want to thank them. We want to thank them tremendously for that award at the Rotary event last evening. So folks, as you're coming into the room, as I said, just do us a favor, like and share this week's live stream. And what we want to do now is to get straight into the weekly editorial. And I suspect many of you are following the football that's happening in North America, whether that's in Mexico, the United States, or Canada. Now, for 4 years, the international community, led by Western governments and Western media organizations, as well as advocacy groups, they waged a moral campaign against Qatar. Remember that Qatar World Cup in 2022? Yes, they waged a moral campaign against that World Cup. Now, the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar was framed not merely as a sporting event, but also as a tribunal, really. It was a tribunal, and Western media really put Qatar on trial over their, of course, and the reality is, over their treatment of migrant workers, as well as issues around LGBTQ plus inclusion. The very soul of football, we were told, was at stake in Qatar. Similarly, Russia was accused of violating international law by annexing Crimea in 2014, which they did, and also supporting separatist groups in eastern Ukraine. In July 2014, Flight MH17 was shot down over eastern Ukraine, killing 298 people. Now, many Western media pundits and Western media institutions, as well as politicians, blamed pro-Russian separatists and alleged Russian involvement. Now, following this tragedy, Western media again, and their institutional fellows calls at that time intensified for FIFA to move the 2018 World Cup away from Russia. In fact, Britain's Deputy Prime Minister at the time, Nick Clegg, was among those who publicly demanded this. Critics pointed to allegations of human rights abuses, etc. in Russia, and Western media led the cause. They beat the drums for the World Cup to be moved from Russia to another venue because of those moral failings and human rights violations, etc. Now, politicians demanded accountability for all of that. In fact, the German national team at the time, in a gesture that would be remembered more than many years later, covered their mouths during that World Cup in a politically charged protest. That was in Russia at the time. Now, that was then. Now we are in the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and it gets into the final stages, co-hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And the same folks who were moralizing about Qatar and moralizing about Russia, there is a deafening silence now with respect to the United States hosting the World Cup, North America hosting the World Cup, but particularly the United States. The institutions, governments, and journalists who demanded boycotts, sanctions, and FIFA intervention in Qatar have suddenly become remarkably restrained and silent. An entire new journalistic trade of Qatar bashing was invented in the run-up to the 2022 World Cup. All of that has gone silent. There has been no calls for boycotts of the United States over its treatment of World Cup fans. There has been no call for boycotts by the United States over its treatment of a FIFA referee. There's no calls for boycotts over the United States' horrid human rights record with respect to the hosting of this World Cup. No calls for boycotts over the way in which fans were turned away at airports or how the Iranian team was treated by US immigration officials. And so the hypocrisy, folks, is laid bare in the context of this World Cup. They're okay with critiquing countries in the global south. They're okay with critiquing Russia, but Western media and their friends have nothing to say. They've gone silent. And this contradiction is laid bare for all of us to see. And so that's just my observation with respect to this current World Cup, but it really highlights the hypocrisy that exists in the world, a sort of hegemonic hypocrisy. All countries have human rights records, violations, including the United States. But Western media, not a word on this. So folks, what we want to do now is to take our first break, and we'll be back for the first segment of the program. Please stand by for that.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
And folks, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report, and we will get straight into the first segment of our program, where we will be featuring novelist David Devine's UnCommonwealth, which is a tense political thriller about independence, corruption, second chances, and the quiet courage it takes to defend a place worth saving. Grenada, of course, that is the preamble to the book. Grenada is celebrating its jubilee, the 50th anniversary of its independence. But beneath the pageantry and national pride, all the powers linger, new ambitions gather, and a quiet struggle for the island's future begins. Oisin Finnegan arrives in Grenada as a disgraced former agent, scientist, and chronic drinker with little left to lose. Patricia Arnold, a marine biologist devoted to protecting her homeland's fragile reefs, ecosystems, and way of life, sees the danger others are willing to ignore. When the two uncover a conspiracy tied to foreign influence, political compromise, and the island's volcanic power, they are pulled into a fight far larger than either expected. As loyalties fracture and hidden plans come to light, Oisin must decide whether to keep destroying himself or stand for something again. With Patricia and a small circle of unlikely allies, he takes on a threat that could reshape Grenada's future and alter the balance of power far beyond the Caribbean. What a preamble. Mr. David Devine, welcome, sir, to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. You are, of course, a novelist, and this is your book, UnCommonwealth, a Grenadian thriller. I can't wait to get my hands on the book, sir. So welcome to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. And we want to begin by talking about just the motivation for writing this book and how Grenada inspired this book, your writing.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the book. I do have to make two quick corrections. First of all,
sure.
I'm Irish. My last name is Devine, not Devine.
Oh, it's Devine. Oh, it's Devine. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Oh, you are Irish. Okay, go ahead.
That mistake's made often. And
yes.
the lead character's name, you went right into it. It's also an Irish name, and it's pronounced Oisin, although it's spelled like Oisin. And that's a running gag through the entire book. So you played right into it. But the reason for writing the book, this is my second novel, and yes. I was in the process of trying to get my first novel published, which was just a daunting task. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, I needed to start to write something else. Well, mm-hmm. I had met my wife about 3 years prior, and from the moment we met, we started talking about Grenada. And I personally had lived in Hawaii decades ago, So the thought of island life, it was always appealing to me. I never thought I'd get back to an island. I had never been to Grenada before, but because my wife and I had such a relationship, the thought did not scare me whatsoever. So here I am, needing to get to start writing again, and my wife and I sit down and we watch the Jubilee celebration. And the Jubilee celebration went on for hours and hours. It started with the kindergartners walking into the stadium, and through the high school, through the elementary school, high school, every regiment within the police force, hours and hours. Finally, the cavalcade comes in with the prime minister. He makes his speech and whatnot, and I think, okay, we're done now. And what rolls in after that? But the Land Rovers. And a woman gets out of the vehicle, and I say, "Who's that, Francis?" And she goes, "I don't know. Maybe it's the Governor General." And I'm just all, "What's the Governor General?" And so that started to pique my interest, and I started to learn about the Commonwealth structure and constitutional monarchy and all that and whatnot. 2 days later, there's an earthquake at Kikimjeni. And so, live volcano right off the North Shore, right? And what's right next to Kikimjeni? Rond. And Rond is a private island, really undeveloped, no water, no power, right? And it's for sale for $100 million US. So I've got a live volcano, I've got an island for sale, I've got all these facts started to fall into place, and the story just started to write itself. I do what I say is called kind of fact-based fiction. My first novel was a heist novel based on the fact that when Ireland joined the European Union, they put aside hundreds of millions of euros to redeem all the Irish outstanding pounds. And to this day, there's still a few hundred million euros sitting in that account. So that was the fact that the first book was based on. So all of these little facts about Grenada started to fall into place, and since I've been with my wife, we've been back to Grenada. We've been to Grenada 5 times. So it's a place we've fallen in love with. I mean, Francis grew up there, so and she has lots of family there. So so that's what led into the story.
And you do mention some of the places here. You mention the National Stadium where independence occurred. Then you mentioned Kikimjeni. Then you reference Isle of Rond, which is in the same neighborhood. Let us talk about perhaps the other places when we're reading your novel. The other places, not to give away too much, of course, but speak to the other areas perhaps that you might want to highlight briefly that are in the book as well.
The first thing I wanted to highlight was with the National Stadium, the fact that it was rebuilt by the Chinese, in the early 2000s, and I'm just all, okay, so they financed the rebuild. No, they rebuilt it. Grenada must pay rent on it. No, it was just done, and so that's like, wow, right? And the airport actually plays a big role in it. Right. So, because of what the airport stood for and its role in the whole, part of, the whole U.S. military action there or whatnot. So the airport was significant. And when I came into the airport for the first time, I was thinking, okay, this is going to be a big international airport, runways in each direction for different wind changes and whatnot. And we come in and it's a single runway, and the plane goes down to the end of the runway, makes a U-turn, taxis back down the runway to the gate, right? And I step off the airplane, my hat blows 500 yards down the tarmac, some worker retrieves it for me, we walk in and start going through through customs and whatnot, and what's on the wall but a plaque dedicated with the with the U.S. aid, being, one of the people who rebuilt the airport originally and whatnot, at the exact same time when the United States is, defunded U.S. aid. It was just fascinating. So then, the main character is St. George's University, is where Patricia Arnold works, right? I took some liberty, it's I kind of made it more than just a medical school, so that it had a marine biologist, and that it housed this professor who is this disgruntled professor who really was just coming to Grenada to dry out and save his tenure, not knowing what was going to happen to him. And
I like that. Save his dry out and save his tenure. Yeah.
Right. And now the other thing is, I remember flying into Grenada the first time, and for some reason we came down the east side and whatnot, and the housing project just stood out, right? The Corinth housing project, which was the Chinese
also
China
built by the
housing
Chinese.
cooperative.
Yeah,
exactly. So what's that, right? And that I learned about that. So there's all of that, Patricia Arnold lives on the east side, really near the St. David, St. Andrew border. My wife's brother runs Village Bakery in Crowshoe, so it gets a mention. But I really got to go all over the island, and then I had a reference for Leaper's Hill, but then Leaper's Hill became significant to the whole story, right? And I remember the first time, as I was writing the book, was the first time I actually went up to Leaper's Hill, and there, within eyesight, is Rod, right? I could see Rod with the naked eye.
From Leaper's
Hill. So it was, I was really, enthralled with, Grenada, very small country on the world scheme of things. It ranks in the 180th in terms of size and economy, within the world. And so I kind of looked at Grenada as like this pawn, right? But a pawn can actually, drive an entire chess game, if it's used properly.
Now, your interest in let's talk about your interests in writing this book as a political thriller, and the name, the title of your book also stands out for me, UnCommonwealth. Very, very good play on words there, given that Grenada is part of the Commonwealth, but many of the players you reference here are not Commonwealth related, right? In fact, the international airport built with Cubans and Libyans, but you look at that plaque at the airport, you would never know that Cuba and Libya were involved. But that's a whole other story. But all of the players you reference here, you reference China in particular, not Commonwealth related, while Grenada remains a constitutional monarchy. Let's talk about the title of the book, but also your thinking behind treating it as a political thriller in particular. Because when we think of Grenada, I suppose through the lens of someone who has no familiarity with Grenada, you reference Hawaii, one may think of Grenada as this idyllic tropical island at first glance, without thinking of that sordid past. And I use sordid here not sort of as a pejorative, but as a reality given how history has unfolded on such a tiny island. Let's talk about that.
So, when I was introduced to Grenada, it was fascinating. It reminded me, there's an old black and white Humphrey Bogart movie called Casablanca, right?
I remember Casablanca.
Right? They're in Rick's bar in Casablanca, right? Yeah. And it's just this international smorgasbord. Well, I found the same to be true in Grenada. There's the Chinese involvement in terms of construction and everything, their presence and whatnot. The non-presence of the United States really at this point, but there's the whole citizen by investment program, which draws in a different crowd. There's because of it being part of the Caribbean and whatnot. Americans, other than in Florida and whatnot, don't have a really good sense of Cuba, right? But there's a Cuban workforce within Grenada itself. So there, and then the colonial past of it, being a Britain possession, then a France possession, then a Britain possession again, right? When I first came there, I was trying to figure out why so many of the place names were French until I got into the history of it. So, it was, I just, I couldn't write a story about Grenada without including all of that, that smorgasbord, if you will, of nationalities.
And you're Irish descended, but you have Irish heritage, so you can also have an appreciation of colonization and what the Brits did to Ireland. The same thing that they did to Ireland, they did in the Caribbean, just awful and evil, right? So do we have any of those connections, and did that also inform what you thought about?
It's not so much the Irish connection, although it's interesting because when I write, I have an engineering background, so I tend to do a lot of research as I'm writing and whatnot, and I like to write a book, whether or not it's absolutely plausible. I like it to read plausible, and as I was reading the history and whatnot, and knowing just how young Grenada is at 50 years old, right? But still being within the constitutional monarchy structure and whatnot, it was, it just kind of laid itself out, and in the process, I wasn't. This is a work of fiction, but I like it to give a flavor of what's going on, and the responses to the book so far have been quite good. Read by people who have ties to Grenada. They say, "Oh, this reads true," right? The characters read true. The site, the descriptions of Grenada itself read true, which is important to me. But then there's a whole group of readers who pick up the book and say, "I learned so much about Grenada," right? I want to know more about it. So, I like to write something that's smart, entertaining. I do have a bit of a dry Irish humor to me, which I believe comes through in the writing and whatnot, and that's important to me. And people say, as an author, I always like to hear, like, when people say, I've got one complaint with the book is, I lost 3 nights of sleep reading it. So
that is a good complaint to have. That is a good complaint to have.
Exactly. It wasn't like I had to struggle my way to get through the book. It's more like, I wanted to put the book down, but I read another 3 chapters, kind of thing. So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can patrons purchase the book? I know that folks can go to the Amazons and whatnot.
It's actually available through just about every platform out there. I have my publisher is called Next Chapter, and if you go to nextchapter.pub/books/UnCommonwealth, it brings up the links to all the different sites it can be purchased at. It's available as an ebook. There's a soft cover available and a hardcover. An audiobook is in the works. So really, if you go to nextchapter.pub/books/UnCommonwealth, or even if you just go to your favorite search engine and type in UnCommonwealth David Devine, all of those links will start to come up. So it's really easier to get than harder to get.
Absolutely. And finally, you did say Grenada. You visited Grenada with your wife, and as someone who you've also lived on an island in Hawaii. Let us talk about those similarities and what were some of your first impressions of Grenada, outside of those that you would reference in the book, of course.
Yeah, well, the biggest difference to me between Grenada and Hawaii is Grenada being so much closer to the equator. It's literally about 10 degrees warmer, median year round. So there was that adjustment, but I did things like I observe, right, and you can tell with my forehead, I've got to be a little careful. So one of the first things I noticed was all the locals were walking around with a towel, And for a day I was just sweating bullets, and then I bought a towel, and so now whenever I'm in Grenada, I always carry a towel and a hat with me. So the infrastructure. So Grenada is physically small, but it still takes just about a whole day to get around. Just kind of like due to the nature of the roads and whatnot.
The roads,
and so So when we first went there, my wife said, "We'll take the bus, right? We'll take the bus everywhere, right? We'll save a little money." Well, I did that for about 2 or 3 days, and then I said, "Let's get a car." So since then, I drive whenever I go there. I've since gotten on my last trip, I was able to get my Grenada driver's license, my permanent driver's license. But like bus anecdotes actually are within the story, because there's so much flavor in riding the bus, but and even trying to drive there is also full of challenges and whatnot. But that's just kind of that kind of stuck out to me. My wife and I have actually purchased a home in St. John, so we intend to spend more time rather than less time there. It's going to be a spot we always go to.
Absolutely, Miss Devine. Please correct me. It's Devine, correct, and not Devine.
Correct. Yes.
Correct. Absolutely. Thank you, sir, for appearing on the Bubb Report this week.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. If I could just say one last thing.
Sure, absolutely.
Grenada is such a small island, people-wise and whatnot. Just about everybody knows or is related to everybody else. And my wife's cousin, Lyndon Bubb, told me or told us that we are probably, my wife is probably related to you. She's a McQueen Felix on one side and a Bubb on the other.
Yes, and she might be related to me on both sides, because the Bubbs are a very small clan in Grenada. You have Bubbs in 3 locations. You have them in Boca, St. George, you have them in Birch Grove, and then you have them in Latant and St. David. We come from the Latant Bubb clan, but the Latant Bubb clan sort of really splintered into Birch Grove and Boca. So all the Bubbs are related, but also on the McQueen side. Go ahead.
She's a Latant Bubb. Yeah.
Well, there you go. So her mother, more than likely.
Yeah. Her mother's name was Dora.
So more than likely, we are related. We definitely would be related in that case. Absolutely. Okay, so thank you so much for appearing on the Bubb Report this week.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Viewers and listeners, that was Mr. Devine here, David Devine, really speaking about his new publication, UnCommonwealth, a Grenadian thriller. I am looking forward to delving into that book. I am a bibliophile. I love reading, and so that is something I will be getting my hands on very soon. So, folks, what we want to do is to take our second break, and we will come back for the second segment. And this one, folks, is for you in Maryland. Those of you who are in Maryland, DC, and Virginia, or shall we say the DMV area. There are a lot of Grenadians in Maryland, a lot of Grenadians in Maryland. In fact, when I moved here from Brooklyn, I was surprised at the amount of Grenadians who were here. The difference is Grenadians here are not necessarily cloistered, shall we say, in one area. It's or 1 or 2 zip codes. Grenadians are all over the state of Maryland. My grand cousin of blessed memory and his siblings, Rupert Ambrose, Jean Ambrose, they lived in DC while attending Howard University. In fact, there is a rich history of Grenadians attending Howard University and living in the DMV area. In fact, former Prime Minister Keith Mitchell, he attended Howard University and lived in the DMV as well. And many Grenadians established very deep roots here in the DMV. And in the DMV, later this month, well, in a few weeks, they will be holding the very first Grenada Day, the inaugural Grenada Day celebrations. So we'll be having a conversation about the Grenada Day celebrations after we take this break. Stand by for that conversation. Hi everyone. The Bubb Report is committed to being fearless, balanced, and independent, bringing you the stories that matter most without compromise. Now do us a favor. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. You can also watch us on GBN TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Catch us on WPG10 television every Sunday at 8 p.m. Your support helps us to keep journalism free from bias and influence. And together, we can make sure every voice is heard and every fact is verified. Thanks for watching.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
We seek the truth.
Would you be handing your resignation to the Minister of Culture tomorrow, sir?
No, I will not.
The leader of the opposition, you have accused your government, sir, of using the Grenada Development Bank to facilitate the financing of personal loans for certain government ministers.
The other side is in no position to talk about those issues, and I will leave it there.
We discover new perspectives.
You know his leadership style, and so many are saying, why are you coming now to talk about those issues?
Now is the time to speak. You have the right to decide who will take over.
And you met with Dr. Mitchell, and perhaps you might want to confirm what that meeting was about in your response. But
Dr. Mitchell, like myself, are Grenadians.
We ask the right questions.
Why was there no report on the work done of the commission? And how is this new committee different from the commission that was initially established back in 2022? So who are these elements that are using you?
I'm disappointed in my political leader.
And why is that animating those political conversations now?
This is a very interesting question.
The Bubb Report with Dr. Kellan Bubb. Thought-provoking, truthful, unbiased, and truly original reporting.
And folks, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. We are happy that you are able to stay with us. Grenada Day in the DMV. And for those of you in Grenada who might be wondering, or folks even here in the US might be wondering, well, what is the DMV? Because, you know, in New York, the DMV is the Department of Motor Vehicles. Well, in Maryland, it's actually called the Motor Vehicles Authority. And the DMV references the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. So anytime someone in the Mid-Atlantic states say the DMV, that's what they're referencing. They're not referencing the Department of Motor Vehicles. I had to learn that when I moved here as well. I'm like, what? The DMV versus MV, what are they talking about? But folks, the Nutmeg Alliance, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to preserving, promoting, and celebrating Grenadian heritage, proudly announces the inaugural Grenada Day in the DMV, which will be an exciting cultural celebration bringing together the Grenadian community, the wider Caribbean, and the diaspora and friends from across the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. Hosted by the dedicated board of directors, members, volunteers, community partners, generous sponsors, and fellow nonprofit organization. This family-friendly Grenada Day event will showcase the vibrant spirit of Grenada. It will be more than a festival, and Grenada Day in the DMV will be an opportunity to celebrate Grenada's remarkable contributions to Caribbean culture while highlighting its dynamic future through education, entrepreneurship, tourism, and community engagement. Guests are encouraged to support the many local vendors, performers, artists, and community organizations whose passion and talent will help bring the celebration to life. And here to make sense of the upcoming Grenada Day is a legend in her own right, Miss Lizda Sonny, as well as we have Nikwana Penny. Miss Penny, are you from Boca?
Yes, my mom's family is from Boca.
Well, yes, Penny's is a common name in the Boca, in the St. George Northeast Corridor there. Ladies, welcome to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. And as we indicated, Grenada Day, it will be happening on July 18th, Saturday, July 18th from 11 to 6 p.m. And it will all be going down there in Severn, Maryland at 109 Burns Crossing Road. So I will stop share just temporarily so that we can get you all into frame and have this conversation. So welcome to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. As I said, the inaugural Grenada Day in the DMV area. And Ms. Sonia, I want to begin with you. You have been a community organizer here, and I got to know this when I moved to this area. Your name came up even before I met you, right? But for those who may not know, you are the sister of a history-making Grenadian politician, as well as the sister of a history-making Grenadian archivist. I call your brother the archivist. So for those of you who have seen Gentle Ben Television, GB TV archives on YouTube, that's Miss Sonny's family. So Miss Sonny, first and foremost, talk to us about your history, your Grenadian history, your connection to Grenada. Before, I know you're a humble lady, but let's start there. If you can just unmute your mic, Miss Sonny. Just hit the mic button there. There you go. Okay. You go ahead now. Yes.
All right. Yes. So I am from born in Ladig, Bellevue Line at most, and lived most of my life in Grenville, Grenada. Been in the States for over like 40-something years. I've stopped counting.
You've lost count at this point.
I now reside here in reside in Bowie, Maryland.
Yes. And growing up, just quickly, I know that your sister, Miss Nadia Benjamin, she was one of the first female members of the Grenada Parliament, one of the first female members of the Grenada Cabinet, post-independence in the Sir Eric Matthew Gary Cabinet. There seemed to be a spirit of public service in your family.
Yeah, she dragged me all over the place with her. And one of the things she did was volunteered me a lot, and so it stuck with me. Sometimes I apologize for my the things that I'm doing. I tell my family, I said, please forgive me, but it just happens.
Right.
And I enjoy what I do. I engage myself in the community, not for myself because I'm retired now. And I open doors for people. Yeah, I think that's what I say to myself.
Let us talk about the history of the Grenadian community in the DMV area, Maryland, DC, Virginia.
So we Grenadians have a rich history in the DMV. I could recall, especially in Maryland, Donald Bridgman, who is from Grenada. He years ago started the Good Caribbean Heritage Organization. He saw the need to bring Grenadians and Caribbean people together. And so that has been an outreach and a stable part of the community here in Washington, Maryland area. And of course, we had people like you mentioned, Ambrose, and I could go on and on and on with the Grenada, the stalwarts in the community, the brave boys, and it's been a lot of people whose shoulders we are on right now.
So yeah, the Patrices as well. You have Sue and her family and all of that.
That's the Grenada International Uplift. Yes.
Yeah. So, Miss Penny, let me bring you in here. You are one of the newcomers. I'm absolutely certain Miss Sonny dragged you into volunteerism, right?
She sure did. Yes, yes, indeed.
So let us talk about the idea of hosting Grenada Day and the need for hosting a Grenada Day in the DMV area. Of course, we know that New York, they are the king and queens of Grenada Day. You know, Toronto also has a Grenada Day celebration. I believe Texas now is thinking of one, or they're having one. I'm subject to correction, but I know they're popping up all over. But let us talk about the need for hosting it in this area.
Yeah, good question. So good morning, and thank you so much for allowing us onto your show. So the Grenada Day really just gives us an opportunity to kind of feature and celebrate Grenadian heritage, help us to be able to like support small businesses, and just to kind of introduce our traditions to younger generations while also strengthening that vast Grenadian presence in the Maryland, Virginia, and the DC area. Like you mentioned, Grenada Day is nothing new to states like New York, and in Toronto, and Atlanta recently just celebrated they just hosted their second one. So it is something that it happens in multiple states. However, it's never been done either in the state of Maryland or Virginia or in the District of Columbia. So it's been something that we've been thinking about for a number of years. I know it's been in the zeitgeist. A number of Grenadians have expressed interest in wanting to see an event like that. And so essentially, through a lot of the volunteering efforts that Ms. Sani has dragged me into, as you so put it, we've talked about it quite a lot. And a group of us, we kind of came up with the idea. We talked around some ideas, and eventually we decided we're gonna do a Grenada Day this year.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you formed a nonprofit called the Nutmeg Alliance. So talk about the need for the Nutmeg Alliance and the work that the Nutmeg Alliance has been doing in the build up to Grenada Day, because I know that you've done a lot of work. You've had a number of fundraising events. You've come on board with the Grenada Independence celebrations in the DMV area. So let's talk about Nutmeg Alliance and the role that it has been playing with respect to the preparatory work for Grenada Day.
Yeah. So the Nutmeg Alliance essentially was birthed out of that desire to host a Grenada Day celebration. The desire and the conversations around Grenada Day happened many years before the Nutmeg Alliance was formed. However, I want to say last year on July 5th, Miss Ani, you can correct me if I am wrong, but Mrs. Christine Francis and Mrs. Liz Lasani, they both decided to gather a group of Grenadians to kind of celebrate Grenadian culture on July 5th last year, which just so happens to be 1 year from today. And from there, we soft launched the idea of Grenada Day. At that stage, we decided a nonprofit would probably be a great place to kind of help us to coalesce and build that structure to form the Grenada Day. And a number of Grenadian community members within the Maryland area, they decided they wanted to get on board to assist us with putting on this Grenada Day. And because we were a new nonprofit, a lot of our, essentially we wanted Grenada Day to be free and open to the public. And in doing so, we planned a number of fundraising events, from game nights to Grenadian breakfasts. We volunteered at a number of other community events to kind of get the word out there. And essentially most of the funds, I want to say 90% of the funds were that we have and we're intending to use towards putting on this Grenada Day camp came from our fundraising efforts. And I want to say the other 10% is coming from the gracious hearts of some of our donors.
And Ms. Sani, I want you to pick up on that, because one of the, and I think that is a common thread that's running through many Grenadian diaspora communities here in the United States, that that community spirit that once existed is no longer there as much. So I want to hear from you your thoughts around really getting this Grenada Day off the ground. One of the observations I've made here in Maryland is that Grenadians in Maryland don't necessarily, at least that was the past observation, don't necessarily participate in as much community activities as the folks in Brooklyn do. But even the folks in Brooklyn are now saying that they're seeing a trend where the younger people are not necessarily getting involved in the same kind of community work that folks like yourself have been doing for decades. So let us talk about young people like Miss Penny and others who have really gotten involved and are really carrying the torch forward.
Yes, thank you. We had several organizations in the DMV. We had lately, of course, we have the Grenada Cultural and Social Association, which is still active, but many of our members are getting up there in age. And, you know, for years, we have been trying to get the young people to get involved, and somehow it just never really happened. Even during the days of Steve Alexander, when he was the president of GCSA, one of the things we're talking about is how do we get these people involved? I mean, we want them to take the torch and move on, but that was not happening. And so when these young people came forward, and I am so proud of them. You know, sometimes I feel I just cry when I see Nikki and two of my girls are there too, Eunice and Julia, and they just take this thing and they're running with it. And then we have Nigel, and I mean, I can't, you know, the names of these people, young people, they were their parents, and I grew up together. We did those things together. Chedik, that is Marcia Chedik, and Louise, all of these people, and their children are now taking the reins and they're leading. And I am so, so happy and so proud. I think we are one of the first organizations in the DMV that have a young people group that is active and taking on the role of myself, because I told him I'm trying to retire again.
Well, Miss Sonny, I don't think you'll be retiring anytime. You say that, but I've seen you in action, Miss Sonny.
She's not allowed to
retire. Right. And I must also say, I have to recognize here in the DMV, and especially in the Maryland area, our county executive, Miss Braveboy, her father is from Grenada. I don't know if you have that as something to talk about, but
yes.
And he was one of the pioneers in the area in terms of culture, bringing Grenada to
that is Mr. Cuthbert Braveboy.
Cuthbert Braveboy, yes. Him and Donald Bridgman and the other guys like that. And so his daughter, who is now a county executive, she has started, she has a passion for bringing the cultures together, and she has started the Multicultural Commission. And with that, we have a festival every year, bringing people together, not just Grenada, but bringing the Caribbean and Africa. Oh my goodness. It is such a wonderful festival. I've had the opportunity of being the chairperson for two of them over the past year. And this is a matter of keeping our culture. Your guest prior to us, I mean, he came and had to learn about Grenada, but we are bringing it to you with this cultural day coming up. So that's my
absolutely. Yeah, so let us talk about the event that's happening. And of course, for those of you who are in Maryland, Virginia, DC, let us know. Just add a comment to the chat and let us know if you're joining us. I see here, we do have somebody here who is Camille Mitchell. Camille Mitchell is in Silver Springs. So Camille, we're hoping to see you in Severn, okay, for Grenada Day. Maryland always has good parking. We can't say the same for DC, but so there is no excuse because there will be parking. But Ms. Penny, let us talk about the event that's happening on the 18th.
Absolutely. So
the agenda for it, yes.
So Grenada Day is going to be held on July 18th, 2026 at 109 Burns Crossing Road, and that's in Severn, Maryland. The event begins at 11 a.m. We will start with a brief opening ceremony, and we will have a plethora of vendors, from food vendors to merchandise, craft vendors, our entertainment section, where we have lots of entertainers, bands, cultural showcases that will begin at 1:30. And simultaneously, we will be featuring an oil down competition at this event. So I encourage everyone to come, and come hungry, come with your money, and to be able to help support the small Grenadian businesses that are going to be featured at this event, and to support the entertainers and all of the people who are coming together to try to help us put this event on. So from 1:30 to about 6 p.m., we will be having a great time. We will have a lot of prizes and giveaways available to the patrons. This event will be free. There is ample parking, like you mentioned, but the event is free to the public, and folks can go ahead to our Eventbrite page. You just type Grenada Day DMV and you can register for free to attend our Grenada Day.
And we have here Cynthia Bartholomew is listening from Baltimore, Maryland. Cynthia, there's also Baltimore Carnival happening. I'll be making an appearance there on the weekend. If you see me on the road, it's not the same person that you will see on the Bubb Report, so please don't be surprised or shocked, okay? I tell people that when I play Mass in Grenada. Mass is Mass. When I play Mass, I play Mass, so don't be shocked. Okay. Ms. Sonny, is there anything in terms of, you mentioned volunteers. How can folks, and in the press release, you all did say that you were hoping to get volunteers. How can folks who want to support the day's activities, because the day's activities will not happen without the support of the community, and it will not only be Grenadians. One thing I appreciate about this area is that other Caribbean people, including our brothers and sisters from the motherland in Africa, they support Caribbean events, you know. So you go to Caribbean Heritage Day, you would see folks from all over, you know, the Caribbean there. You know, when Grenada is having events at the embassy, you know, for example, that culinary event that was held, Winter National, you know, folks supported that as well. So how can folks come on board and support, and what support do you need?
Nikki, you go ahead. We have the website.
Yes. So as I mentioned before, folks can go ahead and register to attend. However, if they would like to volunteer, you can check our social media pages. In our bio, we do have a form available for folks who are interested in volunteering. If you are interested in becoming a vendor, you can reach out to our email address at thenutmegalliance@gmail.com. Send us over an email if you're interested in becoming a merchandise vendor, a crafts vendor, you want to spotlight your business, or even if you want to be an exhibitor, you're not interested in selling anything, you can send us an email and we can go ahead and get the process started from there. In terms of volunteers, I know that you can also send us an email as well, but our Instagram does have a form there available if you are interested in volunteering.
And folks can also touch base with the Grenada Embassy as well, you know.
Yes.
Yeah,
If they want further information. Yes, Ms. Sonny, go ahead.
I was say that the young people who need community service hours, they can volunteer and get that also. Yeah, and they can also reach out to me. Some people can't do the social media, but I'm available.
Yes.
Put my number in the chat, Kellan, you know that.
Yes, I will make sure and do that. Yes.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely. Is there anything else that you want to add that we did not talk about for this Grenada Day? I'm also looking forward to this event as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Liza Sonny comes with a village. So this is not just going to be a Grenada Day. We have lots of my friends and associates. I have Guyanese, I have Jamaica, I have Trini, everybody. And I'm expecting them to come out and they are helping promote right now and come in and support Grenada Day. We can't have a Grenada Day with just Grenadians, right? We have to showcase our Grenada.
Right, but and we also have our folks from Nigeria because you know,
Yes.
the State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy, she has Nigerian heritage. So
Right.
I know that the Nigerian community also supports a lot of the Grenadian activities here as well, because a lot of them are part of the Multicultural Commission, so they will be there as well.
I also wanted to chime in really quickly just to say a brief word of thanks because the Nutmeg Alliance, as we mentioned before, is a fairly young organization, but honestly, we're standing on the shoulders of a lot of the other Grenadian organizations that are in this area. I specifically want to highlight like the GCSA and the Helping Hands. I know a number of their members, the GCSA specifically, are involved with the Nutmeg Alliance and also assisting us in putting on this event. I know there's a group in Virginia that's also been very they've offered a number of assistance to us as well. We also had the opportunity to attend the Grenada Day that was held in Atlanta this year, and they also were able to extend some assistance and guidance as well. So this, ideally, Grenada Day DMV 2026 is something that's going to happen year after year after year. Even if the Nutmeg Alliance is not the main ones hosting the event, we do want to say we are truly grateful for the support of all the other Grenadian and Caribbean neighbors and community members in the DMV that's helped us put this on.
Absolutely, absolutely, folks. This is, a very good time to celebrate Grenada, and it will be the precursor to Carnival as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, folks. Thank you so much. Again, as a reminder, if you're just joining us, Grenada Day DMV 2026, the inaugural Grenada Day festival is happening from the 18th of July from 11 to 6 p.m. at 109 Burns Crossing Road, which is in Severn, Maryland. And join the Grenadian community for a historic celebration of Grenadian culture, heritage, unity, and community. Experience the flavors, sounds, and spirit of Grenada right here in the DMV. So there will be no need to journey up to Brooklyn for Grenada Day anymore, right? Every year I have to go to Brooklyn for Grenada Day, and tolls and gas these days. Yeah, not fun. So hopefully JetBlue would start flying from BWI. That's the hope. Right?
We have to shout out to our Delaware people too. They are on, I'm pretty sure. George Bartholomew, he's
George Bartholomew, correct? He's in Delaware. Yes. So the Delaware folks, you no longer have to go to New York. You come down here. It's cheaper gas, lower tolls. Okay. And finally, we have Narissa Celestine James. So proud of you, Nikwana. Was that your teacher?
Yes, she was my teacher in high school.
Well, funny, Narissa and I are from the best parish in Grenada, St. David's, and we attended primary school together in Pomerose. So it's such a full circle moment. Now that I know that, I will be giving you some extra special treatment, right, Narissa? I will be looking out for you. Okay. Absolutely. Okay, folks, we want to get to the next segment. So Miss Sonny and Miss Penny, thank you so much for appearing on the Bubb Report this week.
Thank you for
having
me.
Grenada Day.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, absolutely. Viewers and listeners, this is the Bubb Report. We are going to take our final break of today and come back for the political panel of the week. So please stay tuned for that conversation. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. I am indeed honored and humbled to formally launch the Bubb Report's Conversations with the Candidates series on the road to the polls for Grenada's next general elections. Now, with the elections just 1 year away, the Bubb Report is embarking on a crucial journey to sit with the citizens that are vying to shape the future of the Tri-Island state by way of parliamentary and executive public service. In this series, we will engage directly with the incumbent candidates to account for their stewardship in office over the last 4.5 to 5 years, as well as those vying to unseat said incumbents to articulate their vision for Grenada in all of Grenada's 15 constituencies. This will be an opportunity to hear their visions as well as their perspectives on the pressing issues affecting communities across Grenada. Folks, the old adage is that all issues are local and all elections are local. And the same truism applies here. And those issues that we will be addressing at the constituency level are really local government issues that the people are concerned about. And those are issues ranging from education and healthcare to job creation and infrastructure. As the Bubb Report did in 2022, we believe it's essential for voters to be informed and empowered. Each episode will provide a platform for these candidates to outline their plans, share their experiences, and address the challenges that resonate with you, the citizens of Grenada. We also want to use this opportunity to hear from you, the viewers, your concerns and your issues that you feel must be addressed by the candidates of all major parties. The Bubb Report, where possible, will attempt to invite all candidates from each constituency to appear at the same time for a structured constituency forum. So if you feel as passionate as I am about hearing from all sides at the same time, then please do us a favor by petitioning them to join us in an attempt to break bread on the same table, if you will, in the interest of Grenada's development, as opposed to satisfying narrow political agendas. And folks, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. And we just had a clip there promoting the Bubb Report's upcoming election programming here on the program. I will also be sharing some exciting updates that the Bubb Report on election night will be hosting its own election night coverage. It will be a very first of its kind. It will be a digital election night coverage. And we are doing a lot of background work. I am putting all of the education that really that I was able to acquire to this election coverage that we will be seeing unfolding here on the Bubb Report for the upcoming election in Grenada. So let us, folks, get into the next segment of the program. Now, ever so often, the Bubb Report hosts a political panel to make sense of recent developments politically in Grenada. Since our last panel on the 29th of March, the Bubb Report covered a range of issues, including oil and gas, childhood obesity in Grenada, Delcy Rodriguez's visits to Grenada, Grenada's tax on digital services, the untimely passing of Norman Gilbert and Linda Straker, the jet fuel crisis, mental health issues affecting Grenada, the untimely passing and the tragic murder of Alejandra Hippolyte, gender-based violence issues and pepper spray, and a range of other issues. We also hosted Prime Ministers Dr. Godwin Friday and Mr. Deacon Mitchell, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada, respectively. Yet, today, there will be those who will scoff at this platform for hosting this panel by saying or by suggesting that we are not covering the issues, that you guys don't have anything else better to do, right? Now, folks, this is my disclaimer as we get into this segment. If you have a difficulty with this segment, then you have the choice of logging off. But if you choose to stay, please be respectful with your comments. The Bubb Report reserves the right to moderate its comment section, including blocking incendiary and ad hominem attacks against panelists who appear here. And if you're going to be making comments, the comments should be germane to the conversation. Now that we have gotten that disclaimer out of the way, the next segment, as I said, will focus on recent political developments since this last political panel was convened. These include the political party Congress of the Democratic People's Movement, the New National Party's National Convention, the observance of NDC's 4th year in office with a general council and mega rally, and the frenzied launch of candidates, as well as some other issues affecting Grenada, including the sod-turning ceremony for Project Polaris, as well as other high-stakes projects, including road infrastructure, as well as other issues. And here to make sense of all of these issues that are taking place in Grenada, no stranger to the platform, ladies first. I will begin with Miss Jenny Simon, who is a political pundit in Grenada, as well as Mr. Peter Wickham. Mr. Peter Wickham is joining us as well, political scientist and pollster, as well as Dr. Anthony Bridgman. Dr. Bridgman, who shall we say, Dr. Bridgman, you have been billed as a chief strategist, and I see you have your little orange, your orange pocket square there. But Miss Simon, I promise you, the last time you were here on the show, you said you were surrounded by two movement people. Well, now there is only one movement person here today. So, and that's your good friend, Mr. Bridgman. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. So, since the last time we convened this panel, a lot has unfolded in Grenada. We've had two national conventions. Well, we had one national convention, well, two. They call it a Congress. I'm not too sure why a Congress, Mr. Bridgman, Dr. Bridgman, but okay. As well as the NNP's National Convention and the National Democratic Congress's General Council. So let us get into the conversation in looking, and we want to begin big picture. If we were to give an assessment of the political climate in Grenada right now, let us give a big picture assessment of the political climate. Folks are saying it's exciting. Folks are saying it's very interesting. Ms. Simon, I want to begin with you. Assessment.
Good day, and thank you for having me,
yes.
Dr. Bubb, on your program, and a pleasant day to my two panelists. That's joining. But you
I think, yeah, your internet seemed to be a bit spotty. So what we'll have you do, Ms. Simon, is to log off and log back on again. And you may need to join on your cell phone if the internet continues that way. But Dr. Bridge, yes. So just log off. We're going to wait to get your response, but just log off for now, and we'll have you return for that first question. So we will do that now, okay? And if you can log on with your cell phone, maybe that might be more efficient for this for the benefit of this. But Peter, I do want to continue again. Political climate in Grenada, based on what you have been observing, you've been around the region, and Grenada really is getting into election mode. It's 1 year. I can't believe it's already 4 years since the last election. It's really crazy to me. But let's get your assessment.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of anticipation. It's consistent with reality. I think a lot of what's going on in Grenada now in terms of people's reaction or expectations about an election is framed by the regional context and the international context, which is really pushing governments that can do so towards an election. I mean, we already had elections in St. Vincent and of course, Barbados. Antigua, they also had an election. St. Lucia did theirs last year. The presumption is that in this current environment, especially with the war in the Gulf, even though we assume the war is scaling down at this point, it's an environment in which countries where you have the option to go early should. So in Guyana, you can't, but certainly in Grenada, you can. So the logic would suggest that we should be having an election in Grenada soon. And I think that people are imposing that on their expectations. In addition to that, you have some movements within the NNP. There's a new leader. There is also displacement of 2 members, at least, from the NNP. The new party, the movement that's been formed. So all of these are reasonable why you would have an expectation. And I tell you that in pretty much any other country, an election would have been called already. I think that the logic of waiting for the political environment to settle before calling an election is one that's a bit lost on me. But I am assuming that Prime Minister Mitchell has intelligence and information that I don't have access to, suggesting that it's in his interest to wait. But so for those reasons, which are all logical political reasons, one would assume that we're going to have an election soon. And I think that there's an excitement that is consistent with that nationally, people's expectation that we're going to be going into an election soon, and an interest in seeing what happens.
Dr. Bridgman, let's get your assessment.
All right, good morning, and thank you again, Dr. Bubb, for being on the program. I know that we have been trying for some time, but because of scheduling.
Yes, you're a very important man. You're a strategist for the DPM, you don't have time for small fries like myself these days. But that's okay. That's okay.
No. My weekends are really doing a lot of psychotherapy work, and today July 4th weekend, so I'm free. But Dr. Bubb, I'm looking forward to today's discussion and conversation, because I think Grenada is at a very critical place right now in politics. As you said, we have seen the conventions, the gatherings of all the different political parties in Grenada, and right now we are at a place where we are looking to see where are we headed. As you said, I am a supporter of DPM. I don't make any apologies for that. I believe in the movement. I believe in DPM. But because I support DPM, I am not here to really bash any political party. I am here to draw comparisons, to offer alternatives with regards to our politics. At the top, you mentioned about conventions and Congress. And it's a good point that you raised. There are really huge differences between a Congress and a convention. A convention is about mobilizing in terms of its people for election. The Congress is really about selecting an executive, getting people together, understanding in terms of policy piece. So we had a Congress, and because again, DPM has just been established. So we began with a Congress in bringing together people, selecting an executive, talking about policy. The convention is more in terms of mobilization with regards to electioneering pieces and stuff. Where we are in Grenada, I would say, Dr. Bubb, that we are at a very important place. The government, 4 years, they just celebrated the 4-year anniversary, had a very big rally in terms of how they advertise it. They're doing things in terms of preparing for elections, and I think the other parties in oppositions are doing the same thing. I'm very proud of where we are with DPM. Again, with any new party that come into place in Grenada, you're going against the two established, entrenched political parties. And sometimes it's very difficult. NNP has in power for, at times over 20-something years. NDC, 4 years, and in the past they were together. DPM is just coming in. And with any new political structure, political organization, you're going to have sometimes some issues to get a sense of the public. And we've been doing a lot behind the scenes to really get there. And I'm proud of where we are. There is still a lot of work that we need to do. I think we'll be ready for the election coming up. And, and I want to share some of the things that we stand for with regards to DPM. So I want to thank you again for the opportunity.
Yes. And you're referencing DPM. Ms. Simon should be joining us shortly, and we do want to get, again, because Ms. Simon has had some internet connectivity issues. But Ms. Simon, if you can turn your camera on, and let us know. But Peter, I do want to get on the question of DPM. I've heard what you've said in the past with respect to the lead of DPM, and really with respect, Mr. Bridgman, the DPM is a new entity, really new. Again, and it does take political parties some time to really get their footing going. But Mr. Wickham, as someone who has observed and studied politics across the region, let us get your assessment of DPM and whether or not it would be a viable, and some may say that their ideas are viable, many great ideas, no one is disputing that, but in respect of it being a sort of a viable organizing force in a Grenada election. Let's get your thoughts on how they can play out.
I mean, it depends on what the DPM wants to do, and I think that would be my starting position. I'm a fan of the leader of the DPM. I think that's well known. I think he's an individual who has been in the vineyard for a long time and has been making a significant push in terms of ideas, nationally, and also be part of the framework. So, I mean, that part is not a problem. The question is whether or not he can be seen as an alternative leader of the country at this point in time. And that's where I have some challenges, and I'm not sure that I can go in that direction. Having said that, a political party can do other things. You look at Tim Harris's party in St. Kitts and Nevis. Strong leader. It came essentially with one seat, and that's all they had. And they took over government because they were able to provide alternative leadership in an opposition situation. So I would say that is probably the gold standard in terms of third parties. And that would be the party that you would have to look to see whether they can set a standard. Then you, of course, had other independents over time that made an impact. Jack Warner in Trinidad and Tobago, he made an impact. Asa Michael in Antigua had an impact. I'm not sure that would be a comparison that one would want to follow. But we can discuss that another time. But the question really for me is, what does the movement really want to do? And if the movement wants to replace the government and become to take over in terms of the party, my reservation, I don't have reservations about whether that is possible in this current environment. Because if I make comparisons with the other examples I gave you, what's not there right now is that you don't have a situation where you have an opposition that's weak and floundering. The opposition won the election. They're now in the government. And then you have an opposition that was a former government. And I know that they are broken and hurt, but not weak in the way that you would have found Palm in St. Kitts and Nevis.
In St. Kitts and Nevis, yes.
Yeah. So in terms of what they are planning to do now going forward, it can be a disruptive force. And in that, you can gain some level of measure. So if you are sufficiently disruptive, that you make yourself a player. And the thing is with Grenada, you only have 15 seats. So if a movement comes into parliament with 2 or 3 seats, ultimately they have to be part of a conversation that goes on. You could be a deal breaker. Or alternatively, you can have an alignment. And I think that's where my expectation or hope is, that they are looking at, well, just say they are, you are, because we have a representative here, looking at aligning with the NDC presumably. And if there's an accommodation with the NDC, I think that's the best hope, really, because frankly, right now, that party can do some serious damage to the NNP. I'm not convinced that they can do as much damage to the NDC, but certainly it would help the NDC to have an ally as that. And, the fact is that the leadership is formally part of the NDC. The idea of the left-leaning ideas of the movement, I think, are useful in terms of bringing that kind of ideology on board. And my sense is that even though the NDC has a socialist background, the reality is that the current trajectory is anything but, quite frankly. And I think that it could help to ground it somewhat. So that would be my hope for them in terms of going forward. And I think that from a political, by my perspective of a political analyst, I think that would be their greatest hope, if there can be an accommodation. If not, you can have an adversarial relationship and be disruptive in that way. I hope that the chips fall on your side in the election, and then you're able to negotiate post-election. But a pre-election negotiation with an accommodation would be my ideal hope for the DPM.
Mm-hmm. But Dr. Bridgman, if I may, I don't speak for the DPM, but based on what Mr. Wickham just said here, I'm not convinced that this accommodation talk is something that you all are interested in, because based on everything that you've articulated, you've said as DPM that you want a clean break from the past. You said you don't like either political parties, and that is really the pitch that you are going forward with. But Dr. Bridgman, really, when reality meets the road, that is a whole different ball game.
Yeah. And thanks for that. And Mr. Wickham, good morning to you also. I followed your work. I believe in your work. You have done tremendous work in the past. As someone who is driven by data, I am very much driven by data. Can you share any data that you have that shows that with regards to the DPM, any polling done recently in terms of the 3-party system in Grenada right now?
No, well, I don't. Peter is saying no, but let's get to your point.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything. So I was looking for you.
Yeah, all right. So let's get to your point. Yes.
I think
let's get to your point.
For us, it's not necessarily about alliances. I think any organization, movement, trying to run for political office to claim at the beginning that they're looking for some alliances, I think you're not ready. You got to look to say, I want to win. You have to have a strategy. You have to, and this is what we have. We have candidates in areas, and we're doing a lot of work because our core beliefs is transforming Grenada. We believe in transparency. We believe in putting people's first, fundamental piece of our work. We want to build a better Grenada. And I think if we go to the people and not necessarily looking at from the NNP camp, I think we got to look at it from Grenada. What Grenadians want to hear. Grenadians, I mean, they gave NDC a good chance. And I think Grenada's, there's a quiet and silent majority right now, I think, in Grenada, who they're asking questions with regards to this. So I think if we as a movement come with an efficient plan, the right messaging to the people, and we have it. We have some strong core policies that I think we can go to the people and say to them, here is who we are. We have a lot of young people new to politics, and we have to do a lot of work. And I agree that the two established parties have been there for a long time. So, you know, at times you may be swimming upstream to get to a place with them. But I think with our plan, with our policies, with our ideas of transforming Grenada or building a better Grenada, the movement stands a good chance, I would say, with regards to winning a majority of seats. And it's going to be a challenge. I'm a realist also.
Well, but you just challenged Peter here on data. What data do you have? Has the movement done any internal polling? Have you done any internal canvassing here? And I'm referencing canvassing by polling division to polling division, by constituency to constituency, about your viability. What data do you have?
No, I asked the question because Wickham is from that place. Wickham has done a lot of polling in the past, and I have not seen. So I am not in a position to say that the movement has done internal data. The movement has been visible on the ground, talking to people. I think from that perspective, they have information in terms of first-hand information, talking to people, reaching out to people, our concept of in my yard. Before we become a movement, we are there talking to people to really find out the viability of forming another party. And we got some really, really positive support. So I'm not going to say it's any scientific data that we have done, but I think in talking to people in different constituencies, we have established something that is missing. Because again, Callan, look at the last election, the number of people that didn't vote. If we were to tap into those people, we can make a change, because if the people are fed up, people are looking for something different, alternatives. And again, the government has done some good things, but there are some things I want to talk about today that the government.
Well, yes, and we will get to that. But to stick a pin, Ms. Simon, welcome back.
Hi, hello.
yes, Ms. Simon, welcome back. We did not. Your internet is much better now.
Okay.
Let's thank the internet.
So I'm on my cell phone now.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I hope I'm not using up your data today at all. But Ms. Simon, to the question about assessing, and we got Peter's view on this, we got Bridgman's view on this, the overall political environment now. Again, Peter framed it in respect of the election footing that's happening. He also framed it in terms of what the opposition and so on is doing. But let's hear from you.
No, as I was saying, it's exciting, it's interesting, it's entertaining. It could be frightening at times, but it all comes with an election in the air, actually. So I'm just taking it one day at a time and paying attention and giving my 2 pence when necessary. But in my mind, it is election with back to 2 parties. The NDC and the NNP. I mean, it is obvious, it is clear. Even polling don't mention the DPM. You know, all the pollings I've heard, scientifically or not. Some because some of them are not backed up by data. You just hear somebody said this poll, and this is what this poll says. A poll that would say that NDC is winning all 15 seats, you know? And so, but you don't hear a third party. And so in my mind, we are, again, going to have an election with two parties, and that is the NDC and the NNP.
Let us and let us get into something Mr. Wickham articulated here, and that has to do with really the DPM as a spoiler, non-spoiler, and we had a conversation with Bridgman about that. But Mr. Wickham said something about the opposition that I want you to pick up on. He said that the opposition, I believe, Mr. Wickham, I don't want to fudge your words, but did you say that the opposition is still broken, but that they're still doing work? Is that your theory of the case with respect to the opposition NNP now?
Yeah. No, I said they're hurt.
They're hurt.
But they're moving forward. Yeah.
They're hurt. They're moving forward. So Ms. Simon, let's talk about in recent times we've seen, and this is where we will take the conversation next. The New National Party, they have announced their full slate of 15 candidates with great fanfare. They've had leadership at the executive leadership change by way of their last convention, with a new chairman, a new general secretary, a fresh face in the role of general secretary and all of that. Then the DPM had their Congress event. Again, I'm still confused as to why they called it a Congress, but Dr. Bridgman, you tried to justify it in your head there. Okay.
It's not a justification, it's a difference between the two words.
It's a difference, but because Congress and National Democratic Congress, but anyway,
you'll get
and the opposition held their not the opposition, the government held the ruling party held their mega rally down there at the Montrouge playing field. So in respect of gearing up, Ms. Simon, an assessment of the three political parties and just their readiness for this upcoming election. You're on the ground in Grenada, so you can give us a sense of what you're seeing there.
Okay, so first off, let me say that I'm not representing the NNP. When I speak, whether it's on my podcast, here on this program, I am not representing the NNP. I'm representing myself as a citizen and speaking on behalf of the people who don't have that voice. I am a commentator. I am not a political analyst. And let me get that out of the way, right? Now, I kind of would like to know what Mr. Wickham means by hurting or hurt. Whether, is he speaking about because from the last election and the fact that they lost? What he means by they're hurting or they hurt? I'm not sure what that means, but they're moving on for sure, I know. And from what I can see, they are moving on. And in my mind, in my view, they are in the front. We're speaking about readiness. And the NNP is the only party that name a full slate and ready for the next election. And not just name a slate for naming a slate. You can see is that they took their time in attracting a very professional, intelligent, fresh-looking slate, right? The NDC is still toying with certain constituencies, St. Mark, St. Patrick East, St. Andrew Northeast, St. Andrew Southwest, to name a few. There might be more. But the NDC does not have a full slate. I don't know, they're saying they're ready, but they're still in rooms trying to get candidates for some of these areas that I've mentioned there. And St. Mark was the last one. Oh, and St. George Northwest, actually. They don't have a candidate there either, period. In some of the others, they have a candidate, they have caretakers, and they're trying to shuffle right now. DPM, they too named just a few. Got some.
We can still hear you. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Okay. Yes.
All right. Right.
Yes.
They named, I believe it was 8 so far. I'm not sure if they did any in between that, but the last count I got was 8. So unless by some miracle they intend to win all these 8, then I could say they're ready. but you don't get ready for an election with eight candidates. So in my mind, the only party that is ready for the next election, if it's called anytime soon, is the NMP.
Mm-hmm. And Peter, let us pick up on that. Let us pick up on what Ms. Simon's observations here with respect to just party readiness. Again, there's a school of thought that elections in the Caribbean are really, it comes down to the leaders of those parties. But there's also been a school of thought in Grenada in the last election that it was all about novelty and youth, except the opposition New National Party, they have answered that novelty and youth question with respect to the candidates that they have announced. So let us get your assessment of parties in opposition, the New National Party, opposition now, and the extent to which they have been able to regroup from the defeat in the last election in 2022.
Yeah, no, I don't have a difficulty with Ms. Simon's analysis, especially as she's the person on the ground and she's in a position to make certain qualitative assessments that I can't make from a distance. Having said that, however, there are tools I use as an analyst that will produce slightly different information. And let's start with this whole question of the NNP's position. The NNP was one of the leading political parties in the region, probably still is. It had a very, very good record of success, but they had a devastating blow in the last election, and there's no question about it. Losing that election with Dr. Mitchell, who was the winningest prime minister in the Caribbean, to go from there to lose to someone who was a political unknown, I think that was a massive blow. It must have been a massive blow to him personally and politically, and not so much that he lost, but the fact that he lost to someone who a year before was not even mentioned in any public opinion polls that we did. And a lot has been said about polling and so on. The fact is that we never polled Dick Mitchell largely because he wasn't a factor when we were polling, which is interesting. So that's the first basis of the pain that I think that the NNP experienced. Having said that, they're out of office and in opposition. They lost not one but two members of parliament, and that's painful for any political party. If you try to counter that by saying that they have a slate ready, I have some challenges there, because whenever you change candidates, it destabilizes a political party. So contrary to popular belief, the newness of some of the candidates is probably a major vulnerability of the NNP. No, I look at Kamala Persad-Bessessa when the last election was called, when Stuart Young called the last election in Trinidad. She had half a dozen candidates that hadn't been declared, and a lot of people were saying, well, she wasn't ready. She went in and she won. She won on a canter. So in the final analysis, especially when you were in government, and I'm not talking about when Tillman Thomas was prime minister, because clearly that government had collapsed. When you are in government with the kind of strength that he has currently, psychologically it's an advantage. And I think that he also has an advantage in terms of the perception that he's prime minister. And, frankly, if you compare him to Tillman Thomas's run, Tillman Thomas was a member of parliament in Grenada for a long time. Tillman Thomas was someone that we expected could have won, even though it seemed unlikely. You compare him to Dick Mitchell, who was Dick Mitchell never even ran a church group, and now he's prime minister. And the expectations, in my view, were low. Certainly, the expectations from my own personal perspective were quite low. And he has completely exceeded those expectations. Is he perfect? Of course not. He has made several unforced errors, and I think that delaying the election is probably the most egregious of them so far. There are several things he has not taken advantage of, and I understand that Grenadians are experiencing some pain on the domestic front. And no, he doesn't seem to be as concerned about it as I believe he should be, but he isn't. But with all of that taken into consideration, you're looking at a person who the expectation was that he would not have been doing as well as he has. And the fact is that he's made it this far. So I think that he's in pole position. The NNP, on the other hand, has changed leadership, which is always disruptive. They have changed candidates, which is always disruptive. And they just lost an election. And I think the perceptions at some level are that, there's an imperfection. And I'll tell you, you were asking me about polls earlier. Whenever I have polled in Grenada and I polled the issue of leadership, the name of Peter David always came up as number 2. And that's a significant point that has to be made. Peter David is part of a conversation now in which I can tell you that there's poll data that suggests that he was the second most popular person behind Dr. Mitchell in terms of leadership in Grenada. He is now a factor. The other key players, I don't know were mentioned significantly. I certainly don't recall them being mentioned. I think the current leader of the NNP came out once or twice, but not with the level of regularity and the level of strength that Peter David did. No, I'm not suggesting that means he's going to win. I'm just saying that there is some kind of evidence to suggest that he can be disruptive. And the thing is that if he's going to be disruptive, the main person that he's going to be disruptive to is the main political party, is the NNP. But ultimately, all of these issues that you have raised, Jenny, have to be considered in the context of a public opinion poll. I'm not in Grenada, I don't know. And it is entirely possible that poll data could show that you're correct, that people are chomping at the bits to get rid of Dicker Mitchell. Or alternatively, they could be changed on the horizon again, and people are saying, let's settle back into this mold. One of the things we have to be careful about, though, is this perception that there are all of these lot of people in Grenada that didn't vote in the last election. That's not true. I remember there was another pollster that suggested that they were going to wake up all of these people who had never voted. The voter turnout is 40%, and all of these 60% of people, we can get them to vote. Those people don't exist, right? Grenada probably needs to do a re-registration, and they will find that most of those people are dead, migrated, something of the nature. We're talking about a small number of people who, in my view, were most likely NNP supporters, and they have essentially stayed at home. And that's what caused the change. Now, two things can happen. One is that those people can continue to remain at home and not vote, and instead use the time to do something else. Or alternatively, those people can come out and vote against. What I have found in the case of Barbados, which is interesting, is that I have found initially people withdrew from the Democratic Labour Party initially and didn't vote. What's happening now is that a lot of those people have either converted to the Barbados Labour Party or they're continuing not to vote. And that is interesting because if it is that you cannot get those people who didn't vote for the NNP last time, who kept the NNP in power for all of those years, you can't get them to come out and vote for the NNP because they realize that there has been a change in terms of politics in the region. I don't know if the phrase "crapo smoke pipe" is used in Grenada.
It's very apt in Grenada, very, very apt in Grenada as well. Right?
There's some dark days ahead for the NNP then, if that's the case.
But
I could be wrong. So let's.
Again, a day, a week is a lifetime in politics. But Bridgman, I want you to come in on this conversation, please. Yes.
Can I ask Mr. Wickham, and I want to ask also Jenny a question. We talk about the slate of candidates, and NNP, as Jenny said, has.
Can we frame it as a statement, not as a question? There is only one moderator here, but go ahead, please.
Okay.
With respect, can you frame it?
Things come up. There are times you may phrase something in a question. So let me try to.
No. Yeah, or rhetorical question. Yes, sir.
Well, oh man. How? That's a question. The importance of messaging, the importance of the opposition, because yes, NNP has its full slate, but what's the message? What are they running on? That's, I think it's important piece for me. Not just as the opposition, one of the roles of opposition is to draw comparisons, to criticize, but what's the plan? If you were to go to the voter now, what are your plans to say for the next 5 years for Grenada, rather than just the NDC is not doing this, DPM is not up there? How do we get people, the informed voter, to say, I want to make comparisons on the different movement, the different political parties with regards to the plan for the next election? What's the importance?
Well, Mr. Bridgman, I don't speak for NDC, but I want Ms. Simon to come in on this. But Dr. Bridgman, the NNP did outline their vision in the last convention. They did outline what their plan was. You can go on their website. It's there. The leader of the opposition, in her address at the convention, did outline the Better Grenada plan. It's called the Better Grenada plan. You can go look it up. So don't say that they did not. They did.
Okay,
so, but please, Ms. Simon, he addressed that at you. Go ahead.
I was going to answer to Dr. Bridgman and ask him to come to the front of the class Because Dr. Bridgman, you're obviously not following. Hold on, let me speak now. You're actually not following the politics on the ground in Grenada.
Really?
Because not only did she do it, or the NNP do it at their convention, but they've been doing it at their Connect meetings. The meeting they call Connect, they have been doing it as well. Now, I don't have to speak for NNP because I don't have to tell you what it is today, but you, as Dr. Bubb said, you can go on their website and you will find it. But I need to answer a few to Mr. Wickham. Mr. Wickham. Now, he spoke about NNP changing candidates being disruptive. What is disruptive about change? NDC coming into the 2022 election, they changed candidates. How many candidates that was in the 2018 election for NDC was in that 2022 election? How many? How many? What was disruptive about it? And in the 2008 election, NNP got a worse licking, and they came back in 2013 and won 15 seats. How? Because they lost an election now, they're dead and they buried and they crippled and they what make that happen? How it is? NDC came back with from 15-0 to winning. Why? And NNP is a more experienced, more support. They have a bigger base party than the NDC. Now, also, when Dr. Bridgman mentioned the base, almost a base that has not voted, and you said that's not true, that is absolutely true. However, that is not just true to the 2022 elections. This has been happening for several elections, and as far back as the 2003 election that I know of, that's when I just came back to Grenada. That election that I followed like that. Since then, a base of an amount of almost 20,000 persons did not vote. In 2008, it went up, and it keep climbing. But NNP won 15-0 elections with that kind of persons out there not voting. So how is it all of a sudden these people that did not vote belong to NNP? How is it that that group of persons belong to NNP? Now, NNP has the biggest base. There are those who may not have voted, and not just for NNP, but for NDC as well in the last election. NDC was able to convince some NNP persons, I think the figure is somewhere about 3,000, to vote for them in the last elections. And you hear even NDC people, well, the clip that's breaking the internet now, the lady said, NDC cannot win an election if NNP people do not vote for them. And that's a fact. Even with NDC winning the last election, I think it was like 33,000, they did not get to the peak of NNP base. NNP base is 10,000 more on average than NDC. So we cannot just give these people to NNP. And we cannot just say, and they've been saying it, that DPM would affect NNP. On the ground, what is noticeable is not that. I don't know, Mr. Bridgman, I'm not sure how much you know about DPM, but do you know that DPM is trying to talk to NNP in the back? They've gone to...
Well, you're breaking some news here, Ms. Simon. You're breaking some news.
Yes, because I need to say that. As we speak, up to last week, DPM has sent persons to speak to the leadership, the now leader of the NNP and the former leader of the NNP. And do you know what they want? I'll tell you here what they want. They want the NNP, not to put up a candidate in the town of St. George. And I hope Mr. Wickham is listening. So that your Mr. David, that is second in what popularity in Grenada?
No, don't go there, eh? Don't go there. I am speaking to historic. I said historic data. Don't go and quote me instead. I did a poll saying
historic data. Yeah.
I didn't hear the historic. I didn't hear the historic.
Yeah,
I apologize.
Data. He's referencing.
I did not hear historic data.
Yes.
But so they do not want the NNP to put up a candidate in the town of St. George, and in response, they will not put up a candidate in St. Andrew Southeast. The NNP turned them down because the NNP is not scared about St. Andrew Southeast. There's nobody there that it is impacting the ground there to make them scared of making that swap and making that deal. So the deal was turned down. So as I said, let's forget about DPM right now, and let's just move on with NNP and NDC. This is what is happening on the ground. You not here. I don't know if there's being meeting, maybe Zoom. I don't know how it is be in the DPM meeting, sir, but you have no clue what is going on the ground in Grenada. And I go back to the point, and I could map out, and I won't do it here, but I could map out from my investigation and my research, NNP's route to victory if the election, well, whenever it's called.
No, I mean, it was interesting.
Please pick up on that. Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
No, I mean, there are a couple of issues here, and I'm not carrying any flag for either political party.
And you have established that disclaimer.
Let me make it clear. And as I said, I don't want nobody. I have not polled in Grenada recently. I have no poll data. I was speaking to a historic situation. I think that Ms. Simon has misunderstood a lot of these things that I've said, but I appreciate it's a slightly different perspective. This whole question of non-voters, I will not deny that the NNP has a larger voter base in Grenada. It is entirely unsurprising because it has been in power in Grenada for the better part of the time Grenada was independent, right? So they have the larger voter base. I did not say that the people who did not vote in the last election are NNP supporters. What I did say, should I say, is if you look at it, the large number of people who did not vote in previous elections also did not vote in this election. My feeling is that a lot of those people do not exist in terms of the voter roll. So let's be clear on that. Now, you may say that I'm misinformed, I don't have scientific data. The fact of the matter is, if you have a consistently low voter turnout, as is the case in Grenada, it's entirely possible that those people do not exist. And I have actually done concrete research in the case of Barbados, where we've been having persistent voter turnout issues. And we determined the last election that we had in by-election, 20% of the people who were registered to vote did not exist. But that is the nature of our thing. And I think that that's a big part of it in Grenada. No, in addition to that, you would have seen a decline in support for the NNP. My feeling is that a lot of those people who were NNP supporters in previous elections, in this last election, a lot of them did not vote, period. A lot of them remained at home. And that is essentially how change is effected. And if you listen to me, Ms. Simon, I was saying in the previous election, in the previous part of my contribution, that what I have found in many cases is in the case of Barbados, the first step is that supporters of a long-standing political party withhold their support, right? The second step is that they may engage on behalf of an alternative party, or alternatively, they may re-engage on the part of the party that they were supporting before that they were happy with. No. Based on what you're saying, you're seeming to suggest that the NNP has intelligence to suggest that these people are coming back to them, that the new leader has all the support that they lost and they have nothing to worry about. And if that's the case, I'm happy for you. I, however, am slightly more inclined to question this. And to ask questions in relation to it. Now, the other thing is about this change agenda that the NDC is pushing. You need to be very, very careful about the change agenda. And again, I'm not on the ground.
You mean the NDC or the NNP?
The NDC.
The NDC, yes, go ahead. The NDC,
so, right.
Go ahead, yes.
So the point is that the NDC has been out of power for 4 years. Sorry, the NNP has been out of power for 4 years. And you are coming with an agenda that suggests that you have a developmental plan for Grenada now that's going to achieve all of what you never achieved in the last 30 years, but you're going to be able to achieve it now. and that what you need is change, right? What I have found is that this is a fundamental error that a lot of political parties, like the Democratic Labour Party in Barbados, they have been essentially going after me and Motley and saying that, you know, there was all of these things that should have been done that can't be done and whatnot. The issue that the NNP has is not a question of its agenda or what it will do or developmental and whatnot. The problem is that people have issues with their ability to govern, to win an election and to govern competently. And I think that that's really the question. So it's not a question of the agenda or the direction, because I mean they've done well. It's not a question. I mean Grenada has done very well under the NNP for many years.
Yes.
Right now, the question that they have to ask is their own viability. Are they viable as an entity with a new leader, with new candidates and whatnot? And I think that that's really the question that they have to ask. So when you're saying that the messaging is about an agenda that says they can take Grenada forward and whatnot, I don't have a difficulty with that. I mean, it's on a website, people can read it. But ultimately, I think that people in Grenada in the next election will vote less on that and vote more on the basis of whether they think it is a viable entity going forward. And as I said, that has been my experience regionally. And political parties across the region always read that thing incorrectly. You know, you think, oh, I can put forward a better agenda. You know, I have no difficulty with that. The question is, do you think that we have the capacity to win an election and to be able to carry it forward? And I think that those are the kinds of questions that I think that perhaps scientific investigation would be useful. So is it that people want change to go back? Or alternatively, is it that people are looking at the viability? And the final question I want to ask is this whole question of accommodation. I don't know whether the movement has gone back to the NNP and asked them about an accommodation. I don't know whether the movement has gone to the NDC and asked them about an accommodation. But what I can tell you is that if I was involved in the movement, I would be going to both and asking about accommodations. Because Jenny, you may not realize this, but accommodations are very, very normal in politics. Look at what happened in St. Lucia. You have two independents in parliament based on accommodations, right? Accommodations work across the region, and it's accommodations that worked in St. Kitts and Nevis that help team unity. So you form a political party, and invariably, yeah, you go and you ask accommodations. And I think that the town of St. George is a logical place to start, because you may think that the NNP is wasting time trying to win a seat there. So you use that as a bargaining chip for other places. If you don't think that they have a problem, and I mean, for what you're saying, the NNP has it covered. So all I say, I wish you guys well. And it is for that reason that the Prime Minister probably should call the election now, because all these series will be tested one way or the other. And we're not lost, you know, it's nothing on me. So, so we see.
Dr. Bubb,
quickly, Ms. Simon, because we have to get to the other topic. Quickly, yes, please.
I didn't say, I know that there have been accommodations before in different elections.
And they have accommodations in Grenada as well, NNP and the GULP. With Michael Batiste and Clarence Raper as well.
And there are reasons though. But let's not go back to that. I know what's going on there. Let's not go back to that. One thing I wanted to address that Mr. Wickham had said, been speaking about before, and all we hear about NDC through Mr. Wickham is about Deacon Mitchell. Deacon Mitchell. Are we running a presidential election here?
Yes, we are.
Are we?
That's what we do.
But
because there are other candidates.
Yes.
That's what we do.
Hold on. There are other candidates, and that you check the rural area. You check the rural area of Grenada, where this administration has done nothing to help and uplift these people. You go down you must come here and go down on the ground in the rural area and see if they're talking about Deacon Mitchell. They were speaking about their candidates who are sitting helpless and was unable to help them in the last 4 years. But another thing I want to come on with quickly, NNP is not starting over. NNP is continuing. They're not starting over. They are continuing. And if you're talking about years, NDC party was in office in Grenada for 22 years. I want you, sir, or sirs, to tell me and show me any long-standing sustainable development by the NDC over the 22 years they've been in office, right down to now, 2026. And then compare that with the NNPs for 22 years as well. No government could fix all the roads in any 10, 15, 20-year term. And by the time they finish fixing, if they're going on there for that long,
or in 4 years,
you have to start over. So if now NDC could come in and do some roads, what's wrong with that? That's what we put them there for, to serve. Nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't mean that NNP did not do roads, because I remember on the Grenada Heartbeat program, calling NNP a concrete government, and because all they were doing was roads. Now all of a sudden, they have done no roads. So you cannot compare the accomplishments of the NNP with the NDC. We had Mr. Brathwaite, we had Tillman, we had George Brizan. It is NDC continuing. And NNP, if they come back in office, will continue. They don't have to start over. And things they didn't do in 30 years, they can't do it now. No. They're not. No, that's not what happens in government. And I'm sure you know that.
But let us get on to the next question, which again which will be a through line for the question that Ms. Simon raised about leadership here. Because again, in the context of the last election, Peter, you know, Deacon Mitchell again came out of nowhere, right? Now Deacon Mitchell and the National Democratic Congress, this iteration of the National Democratic Congress, they have a record that they would need to run on and defend. And so, Dr. Bridgman, I want to begin with you on that question, and I'll get to Peter and then Jenny. Dr. Bridgman, let us talk about the current leadership of the National Democratic Congress going into this election and the record that they will be running on. They will say, with respect to paying the pensions, that's part of their record. They're also going to talk about labor relations issues. They're going to talk about infrastructure. They were going to talk about Project Polaris famously right now. With the sod was recently turned on that. So, Dr. Bridgman, let us start there with respect to the record, and how does the DPM intend to thread that needle with someone, a leader, who has, again, based on polling that was done by Dr. Justin Pear before, who indicated that Deacon Mitchell is still very popular despite those other concerns.
And yes, he is. And thanks for that question. Leadership,
yes, sir.
Leadership matters a lot in the three political parties. And I will give the government, which I've written about in the past, credit for some of the things that they have done. Again, as I said at the beginning, I'm not here just to bash the government or NNP.
Yes.
I'm here to draw parallels, comparisons. They have done some good stuff. When they came in, I was very much in support of the pension. I am a strong believer that retirees, people who work hard for a number of years, they need a pension. I'm coming up to retirement in a couple of years, and this is something in the New York State I'm relying on because of all my years of service. We need that. So I'm a big supporter of them. I supported them, even though some of my friends at that time didn't support them with regard to the salary increase. For parliamentarians, I think people need to be paid for what they work. I remember being told what parliamentarians were making, and I was like in shock. As a matter of fact, Honorable Delmo Thomas is one who told me that years ago. And I'm like, there's no way we need to pay people and pay them well. I think they've made some strides in education, but there are other things. The Polaris piece, I'm a big supporter of any new hospital, but at the same time, we have to look at what we have right now. How are we making progress to the general hospital, access, improvement of services, all those kind of stuff. The Polaris piece, there needs to be more transparency in that aspect with regards to the funding. Yes, and I think, Jenny, you went to check to look after they did the groundbreaking ceremony and nothing was there. They need to show things that are being done. The other piece I have concerns about with regards to transparency in national projects. That's a big issue that I think the government needs to come better at. The other one is political stigmatization and polarization. We have a very polarized Grenada right now. People judge you based upon your political party. For example, even some of us may be making some good points here, but because of the political party we support, no, I can't support that. I can't support him. I can't support her. We need to make a fundamental change. And I think I wrote about this recently in my Sunday read, that the Prime Minister and the others need to really address that issue. And he has not done that and done it well enough to address this polarization piece. We are one Grenada. Look at it again from the diaspora homecoming piece. I am a big supporter of the diaspora and the diaspora involvement in Grenada. But here's what happening now. From the first week of the diaspora piece, it looked like an NDC event. Again, perception matters. We need to change that. And I know Mrs. Purcell and Donald who are in charge of this. We have to do a better job to remove this brand of the NDC brand in the diaspora piece. The homecoming piece is a very good piece. We need connection with Grenada and overseas people. But what I'm seeing thus far, it is an NNP. You had the Prime Minister's boat ride that weekend. You had the NDC convention that weekend. You know, it appears as if they brought people home to register and to be part of NDC.
Well, you don't have any evidence that they brought people home to register, do you? Or are you breaking news here, sir? Do you have evidence?
Perception matters, my brother, and you know that.
Well, the only thing I would say about that question about diaspora, I sometimes get very offended when folks in Grenada talk about, they speak derisively about diaspora when folks in the diaspora offer any opinion on what's happening in Grenada. Well, but have absolutely no difficulty with diaspora people sending them money via Western Union, diaspora people sending them barrels, diaspora people sending packages via JetBlue, diaspora people supporting the national economy by way of construction and other areas, diaspora people supporting philanthropy. There is a Grenadian right now, John Crow Alexander, who has supported Grenada, who went down to contribute to Grenada. So I understand where a lot of this electioneering talk is coming from around diaspora, but let us not use that as an excuse to speak derisively about diasporans' contribution to Grenada, because we are all Grenadians.
That's right.
I just need to put that out there.
Yeah. And
I get very pressed by that, because, and the other question about folks coming down for elections to vote and to register and all of that, the data suggests that all parties do it.
Yes, no.
All parties do it. Not only the current government, but the previous administration party did that as well when their party was in power.
Yes.
So, sorry, I get very passionate about that. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut your train of thought.
Dr. Bob, here's my point. If you advertise in a diaspora homecoming, it has to be for all Grenadians. But
that I agree with. Yes.
The
yes.
appearance looks like an NDC piece. One more piece with regards to the leadership piece. We are suffering inflation globally, and I can't blame the government for inflation. No, anyone who tries to blame the government for the price of goods and services really out of their mind. We are facing a global crisis with inflation. However, and I know that in the 2026 budget, they talk about 20 items that they're going to do. But we need to do more for affordability pieces for Grenadians. Again, I don't live in Grenada. I cannot be at times the experiences of Grenadians, with regards to those things. But I'm going to say that we need to take a look at affordability, and affordability, not necessarily with a blanket piece to say, okay, 20 items for everybody. I think you got to look at your pensioners. You got to look at those in terms of the lower cost of living situations, with in terms of the price of goods of the people who really need it. Do something for them in terms of affordability pieces, and that's an area I think they need to do better at with regards to the government leading that piece. Not that you cause inflation, but speak fast and do things, man. They wait too long to implement and to do things for the people. Those are my biggest issues that I have currently with the government.
And Peter, let me bring you back here again on the question of the NDC's record that they would have to run on. Ms. Salmon brought up earlier the question of Deacon Mitchell here, candidates versus leaders, and what's happening in the rural constituencies and so on. Let us get your take on that, sir. Deacon Mitchell's record that he has to run on versus the idea of whether people vote for the leader or whether they vote for candidates.
Yeah. No, but I think the evidence is clear that people vote leadership. Leadership is the single most important factor in terms of determining the outcome of elections, and that has been the case across the board. I mean, that's why Keith Mitchell did so well over the years, because people were looked at leadership. Which leads me to the second point, and I think that comparatively speaking, you know, it's a huge mistake to compare the previous time that the NDC was in office with this time, because the NDC was in office on the previous occasion because the NNP was in office on the previous occasion because Tillman Thomas government collapsed, and that's how the NNP was able to get back in so quickly.
And a lot of palace intrigue.
Oh yeah, it was a dismal failure. I mean, it's painfully obvious. Which brings me to the third point, which is expectations, and I think that right now expectations were a lot lower going in because there was no history of NDC success. The last time NDC was in office, the outcome was not good. And they were recycling the same old people all the time, you know, Nazim Burks and Tillman Thomas and so on. You had a clean break, and I think that you had a chance. And I think with that comes the possibility that a lot of people had set the bar relatively low in terms of what he needed to do. So I don't disagree that a lot of the issues that you have discussed are important. And as I said at the outset, it's clear that there are a number of things that the NDC has not done, that Prime Minister Mitchell has not done, that he needs to do. There's several developmental and other issues that need to be addressed. Having said that, however, there are a lot of Grenadians that are watching and saying, but he got to the finish line. He appears to be getting to the finish line, and he's getting to the finish line in far better shape than Tillman Thomas did. And against that background, with expectations lower, I think that it will be an easier task for him to say, look, I have done so much, you know, give me an opportunity to go to the next step. And the other point that I think you need to make is that NNP has been in office for such a long time in Grenada. I'm sure that the vast majority of permanent secretaries and senior technical officers and so on in Grenada are people that would have been there under Mitchell, that would have grown and been promoted and whatnot. Ultimately, the first term for NDC, and I would give them this, is going to be very, very difficult because you don't really have cooperation and support from the vast majority of people, because these are people who would have been opposed to you philosophically, intellectually, and perhaps even politically before that. And you're essentially fighting against the tide in the first term. My expectation is that if he does get a second term, he will probably be able to achieve a lot more in the second term than he could have in this term, because, as I said, it was hostile. And I would say the same for my brother in St. Vincent and the Grenadians now. You know,
that's Dr. Friday.
Dr. Friday, right? You've been in Dr. Gonzalez has been in government for 25 years, right? Your first term will always be challenging, and there will be very, very little that you're going to be able to do in real terms, because the fact is that you're just surviving. And I would say the same thing to him too. If you get to the end of that term without losing any members, and indeed with gaining some members in terms of people crossing the floor and whatnot, I would say that you're going to hold on, because the expectations that people have are very low. That is not to say that the assessments, I think there needs to be a quantitative assessment in terms of polling. With all due respect to Pierre, I prefer the Cadres poll. I haven't done one, and I would love the opportunity at some point in time to be able to measure those variables and measure those factors and say, well, look, who's doing better and who's doing worse. Right. But if I'm just looking at it on the face of it, as I said, I am inclined to think that an election call now would be favorable to the NDC, and it's not because I want that to be the case, but that's just because that is the way that invariably it works in these kinds of scenarios.
Ms. Simon, yes, Dr. Bridgman. Dr. Bridgman, I'll give you a chance to chime in quickly, and then we'll go over to Ms. Simon. Yes.
30 seconds. The last segment, Jenny said some things, and I needed to verify. I don't like to be unprepared, and the stuff she said that DPM reached out to NNP about candidates. I did send a message to the leadership, and what I got, it's categorically not true. Jenny, I'm just reporting to you. I reach out to the leadership. I don't like to be kept flat-footed in any interviews because I like to be prepared. I reach out to them. Not true, they told me. I believe them.
So, Ms. Simon, are you prepared to retract your statement?
No,
Because he's saying that he just reached out.
I expect him to believe them. I expect them to say that because it wasn't supposed to come out here, but I did. On behalf of DPM, it happened. And I could call names, but I won't because I don't know that the persons who went to the party wants a name call. It happened, and it's a fact. And I expect that. And I expect Bridgman to believe them.
And did you get confirmation from the leadership of the new National Party that happened, from Ms.
Yes,
Evelyn Payan
from
and
the persons
executive?
who they both went to, yes.
You're saying that the leadership of DPM leadership will...
I don't want to waste time on that, Bridgman. We could talk about that after the show. Let me just...
In the green room. In the green room, we have
let me continue here now. No,
but yes, let's get to the
agree.
question of NDC's record. Yes, go ahead, please, Mr.
I want to agree with Bridgman when he said that the homecoming and appeared to be like an NDC NDC homecoming, and it's not just with the homecoming. It happens with every national event that this administration holds here on island, from the decorations, from the chair coverings, everything is yellow and red. Gold and red. In some instances, they use gold. From that, it shows that stay away. This is NDC's event, and we don't want you here.
But Ms. Simon, what I would say quickly, I don't like interrupting trains of thought, but the government of Grenada did not promote this as an NDC diaspora homecoming event. In fact, one of the viewers...
I'm not saying they did. What I am saying is that's how it comes across. That's how it comes across. Look at the town hall they held in New York. They were promoting Project Polaris. Project Polaris is not a Grenada, is not an NDC project. At least I don't believe that. I believe it to be a national project. But this is what people are going to be afraid to even go to these events now as well. They went to Canada. It is always promote. All you see is NDC persons at the head table, the MC, everything. And we're talking national. But then when the prime minister could stand up on the stage and say, show me who you are, or else the other side, and therefore the other side wouldn't get just you. But we don't know who you are. So you have to tell us who you are, so that the other side don't get. And I am speaking what the words, they may not be in the same order, but the words coming from the prime minister's mouth. The people went to the church service, everybody showed up in yellow. Yellow hat, yellow dress, yellow shoes, yellow. Everything. They're not inviting any other party to come into these events. And that is why most of them flock. Because NDC cannot carry the events, national events by themselves. So when you look, you see more empty chairs than chairs that are filled. Now I'm moving quickly to the Deacon Mitchell leadership.
The record, correct. Going into the election, yes.
Leadership thing and their records. Initially, they were given a chance. And I hear Mr. Wickham, I don't know that. And he says I'm a crapple smoke pipe and all this thing. Now, I don't know that if Grenadians gave that NDC slate a chance in the last election, that there would be any other slate that they would turn down. Any other slate could get a chance as well. When you watch the slate, Deacon Mitchell is not, he cannot even run the ministries he has, much less run the entire cabinet. He cannot. And that's why we have a cabinet members. And so they have not been able, well, I don't know if they're given the permission, but they have not been able to perform. Neither has Deacon Mitchell, but he's likable, he's lovable, and everybody like him. But that administration have not been able to perform when it comes to good governance, accountability, integrity. They have not been able to perform. And as I say, if you go to the rural areas, the people would tell you without even hiding, even NDC supporters would tell you that they are not satisfied with their representatives. This is not going to be about Deacon Mitchell alone. But you know what? I wish they think it's about Deacon Mitchell and I'll leave it so. But it will not be about Deacon Mitchell alone. They have the persons. Right now, why you think they're scrambling? They're giving away fridge, stove. They're trying to finish up all the roads because they did not perform for 4 years. And in 1 year, or I would say in 6 months, they're trying to bamboozle the people with hundreds of projects. I mean, literally hundreds of projects.
But the same narrative was said of the new National Party by the opposition NDC then in the last election. So it's as though we are reinventing the wheel with a different party.
Dr. Bubb, we're not walking back. We cannot continue to walk back. NDC
you just said that the NNP will be continuing. Yes.
We gave them a chance. Right, we continue. We're not walking back. Continuation is a different thing.
You're not representing NNP, but go ahead.
No, I mean, when I say we are talking about any
I
government.
understand the royal way, correct, yes.
Any government
is a continuum, correct.
Going back. And so, it is, I'm telling you, you see, when you're not on the ground, it's a different thing. It's a different story. I do my research for my program. I'm on the ground and I have people on the ground in every constituency that reports to me. Now I'm moving on because some things came up. Education came up as one of the things that they like a feather in the NDC's cap. People, if you all do the research, our education system is in shambles. It is the worst it has been from universal education that was implemented that this administration is not ready for. And therefore, we have the most dropouts ever, and there are data to prove it. The most dropouts ever in secondary schools, especially in Form 1 and 2. The most dropouts. Because the students or everybody going in, they can't handle it and they have to drop out. We are not ready. So we're starting there with universal education. And the dropouts, the school feeding program that they remove the dollar and they cannot sustain it. That's another big one because some children went to school without breakfast and had to be fed by the school and then get a nice hot meal for lunch. This program is in a mess. They have restarted it several times and each time is only the first month. When they give money for that first month, that does well. The program is in shambles. The tuition fee that they boast about for TAMCC, graduation is on Thursday coming. Pay attention to how many students are graduating. TAMCC graduated over 1,000 people for years. Students for years. Pay attention to the figure that will be graduating.
Yes. So what I hear you saying here, you've referenced education. You've referenced the rural economy.
Right?
Because we do have to get on to the other issues. And we're just talking here about the issues that would inform the election now.
Right. So I'm going quickly to the pension.
Yes.
I'm going quickly to the pension because we all are happy for the persons who got their pensions retroactive. Let's make it clear, it's retroactive pension they paid, right? And we are happy for these persons. And that is a certain amount of people. How many persons?
And you would admit that the country has not gone bankrupt as a result of it. Dr. Mitchell famously said that if you're going to pay the pension in its iteration,
no.
If I may, Ms. Simon, if I may, the previous NNP administration said the country would go bankrupt as a result of it. 4 years later, have we gone bankrupt?
Yes, we have.
That's the question.
Yes, we have.
Because of the pension.
We have, including the pension, we have 2 years of a deficit. We have read two budgets, deficit in the deficit, right? We cannot fix our roads. We have higher purchased our roads and our infrastructure on the whole because they do not have the money to do it. And that's a fact. The persons that get paid late and don't get paid at all, sometimes for months, is because they cannot afford it. And that's another fact, right? We are bankrupt. But it wasn't just the pension. It was a pension attached to regularization that was said was going to bankrupt the country, and it did. They used up the entire $500 million that they met, one lick, with including the paying of the doc salaries. And the Attorney General in the Senate admitted that if they did that, they would bankrupt the country. Howards, the Prime Minister, in a press conference with what they call, I think it's DPA, they call that ministry.
The Department of Public Administration, under the Prime Minister's ministry.
Said the same thing, came to us and tell us that they cannot regularize the people, as they said, together with the paying the pension, or it will bankrupt the country. They said it, the exact thing the former Prime Minister was telling them. And I can prove it. I have the clips to prove it with their voice saying it. As a matter of fact, what the Attorney General said before she started to speak, let us be straight up with the people. It's time to be straight up with the people. And if we do that, we would bankrupt the country. But Grenada, as we speak, Dr. Bubb, is bankrupt.
So let us bring the rest of the panel here, because we do have to get. But Dr. Bridgman, you've heard Ms. Simon here. Ms. Simon, I suppose you can say after that, I am Jenny Simon and I approve this message. It's a joke. I'm saying that in jest, folks. I'm saying that in jest. I'm saying but not on behalf of the NNP, Ms. Simon, because you're not representing the NNP.
On behalf of my research.
Yes,
and what's done.
Dr. Bridgman, in terms of the record, and really one of the ways in which the Democratic People's Movement framed its ethos, its political ethos, its political guiding principles, if you will, going into this election, is that they are going to be a break from the past with respect to the political duopoly that currently exists in Grenada. That the political dichotomy has not worked for the citizenry of Grenada with respect to the green and yellow, well, apparently red isn't it now? I'm wearing red today. I hope that does not, red is a patriotic red color. Red is in the colors of the flag, right? I'm saying that in jest. It's a joke, folks. It's a joke. If you don't get my sense of humor. But Dr. Bridgman, let us talk about how the DPM intends to break through that political duopoly, which brings us to the final two issues of this conversation today. And that has to do with the issue of hyperpartisanship. I suppose we can't get away from that now, especially in this age of social media. How does the DPM intend to do that in this political environment, to be able to capture minds and hearts that then converts into votes in polling booths?
That's a very great question. And the formation of DPM, that was one of the fundamental pillars of DPM. Inclusion, doesn't matter who has the ideas. And that's one of the things that drew me to Peter years ago. It doesn't matter who has the better ideas. If it's better for Grenada, let's grab it. Let's work with it. And I think that's something someone said to me in NNP years ago, and I said, bring your plan forward. They said that if we were to do that, they would take it and make it theirs. Who cares? It's all about Grenada. It's not about the political party has the ideas. It's about Grenada. So I think we are making a very much intentional piece to have the collaborative aspect in terms of our tone, how we approach it. And one of the beautiful things I love about DPM, even in our convention, our political leader, Peter, mentioned many times, we do not want to get into the back and forth with people on social media with regards to that piece, the tone of situations. We have an opportunity to transform Grenada in terms of those ideas with regards to how we can come together. You can support your party. You have every right to support your party. I have a right to support my party. We need to sit together and have difficult conversations. It doesn't mean that because I support this party and you support that one, we can get together, we can talk and break bread together and disagree. We got to learn to have difficult and uncomfortable conversations. I want to go back to also something, and I didn't get the real answer to this because my phone is blowing up in terms of what Jenny said. I even on the phone with my political leader. This didn't happen from the party, with regards to going out and speaking to, from what I'm being told, to NNP. So I want to really clarify that. The second piece that Jenny talked about, education. And this is something close to my heart as an educational leader, in terms of a school administrator, professor of leadership and education. I must say that we have to examine, Jenny, when you talk about the graduation and dropout stuff, let's examine the root causes. I don't want to just blame the government for that. Let's examine the root causes of this. What is happening? You said you had the data. I haven't seen the data. So if you have the data, please point me to that data so I can see that. But let's
give the root causes.
Yes, Miss Simon, yes, let him finish. Let him finish. Yes.
Give me a dissertation, nothing. Yeah. Let me, we have to understand what's going on with young people today. There is an issue of mental health in schools, a difficult situation. So not necessarily governmental policies. If they're aware of it and not doing anything to it, then yes. But let's not just come and paint a brush and say it's the government fault based upon graduation rate. I can tell you it's my fault if my graduation rate dropped in the school. I can't blame my Board of Education. I have to look at me in the mirror as to what's going on. So let's not just paint a brush. Well, Jenny, I'm in education. I can talk to you about that.
No,
I can talk. You said
Ms. Simon, let him. Dr. Bridgman, get to your point. Dr. Bridgman, get to the conclusion of your point.
It's easy to do that. It's easier to do that to say the government is not doing this with regards to education. I'm going to criticize them on some aspect of education, but to say that dropout rate and graduation rate it's about governmental pieces. No, let's look at it from the root causes. Examine it. So I like to see the data and find out about this. But let's talk about the DPM. What we stand for. I don't want to talk about what others are against. I want to talk about what we stand for. We stand for really inclusion. We stand for understanding and bringing people together. We stand for that we don't have all the answers with regards to any situation. We want to hear about ideas, good people coming together to work on solutions. We're not coming in to say we know everything. We don't. No political party knows everything. We are not in terms of the arrogance piece. We want to have this collaborative, bring ideas. We started that years in 2024 and Peter was thinking about what to do next, going around the country, listening to people, ideas. And I'm glad to see the government is doing that now for the manifesto. But we started this a long time ago. But Grenadians, we are one people. Let me just say this. We are one people. We need to stop letting politics divide us. I don't understand it. It pains my heart sometimes to see the on social media where people are just, trying to tear down each other. Why can't we disagree and move on? I don't have to read everything that you wrote that I disagree and comment on it. We need to have the political maturity. And I think the Prime Minister has a role to play, the opposition leader, Ms. Spear, my political leader also, which he has been doing it to bring the people together. That's what we stand for.
So that is going to be your campaign. The upcoming campaign will be one that's above board, as Michelle Obama says, when they go low, you go high. That will be the intention.
We're going to talk about ideas. We're going to talk about our plan for the people. That's what I believe in. Yeah. The plan for the people. If you go out there and tell people what you are for, then rather what you're against, than just criticizing the government. For me as an informed voter, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to ask you a question. Tell me what you stand for. Yes, you said they had a vision piece in the last convention, but where's the conversation? If I want to criticize the government, I will come to say, we stand for, the government is doing this. However, DPM, this is what we stand for. Provide the comparisons and not just the criticism. That's all I'm saying.
So let us bring in, and we're going to get, we get it. We're bringing this program to its logical conclusion.
Dr. Bob, are you hearing me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes, but we're going to be bringing this segment to its logical conclusion. But before we do, we'll take a quick break and we'll come back for closing comments. And in closing comments panel, I want you all to think about the changing political culture in the region, especially, in the context of social media and what social media is doing to our politics these days. I honestly think it's getting corrosive. But I also see, Peter, we've seen this in several election cycles. We did not see that in the last election in Grenada, but very low voter turnout and voter apathy. And we'll talk about that. So, folks, we want to take a quick break. And please don't go. We'll take a quick break and come back for closing comments for this segment.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
Hi, everyone. The Bubb Report is committed to being fearless, balanced, and independent, bringing you the stories that matter most without compromise. Now do us a favor. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. You can also watch us on GBN TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Catch us on WPG10 television every Sunday at 8 p.m. Your support helps us to keep journalism free from bias and influence. And together, we can make sure every voice is heard and every fact is verified. Thanks for watching. And folks, welcome back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. We're happy that you can stay with us, and I'm going to bring back all of the panelists. But let me just make the point before we get into the final part of today's conversation. Sometimes I don't think people sometimes understand the difficulty it is to get people from all three main political parties, representing all three main political parties, to appear on the Bubb Report at the same time. For whatever reason, we are now speaking and everyone is siloed into their different social media bubbles, and people prefer to speak to their audiences as opposed to coming on a neutral platform such as the Bubb Report to break bread and have discourse amongst each other. And so sometimes, depending on, and folks are saying, well, why you get this guest or why you get that guest or whatever the case might be, it is because sometimes different people would, as soon as you say who the panelist is going to be, they decline. That has been my reality for hosting this program for 6 years. By the way, this is not new. This has been happening since this program started 6 years ago. And yes, for those of you who are just new to this program, I'm not a Johnny come lately when it comes to these things. So we do want to get to the point I was raising, and really that has to. And Peter, I want to begin with you on that question. Voter turnout in the region has been very low. And what would you say is accounting for that? And in the context of Grenada, I do see very animated, the politics in Grenada is very animated. Sometimes too animated that it has gotten to the point where it's just really off-putting now with all of the personal attacks and the name callings and the fake social media pages. I mean, there are people who go after me every week. Not that I care, right? But I will clap back depending on the context in which you come after me, by the way. But let us talk about those two variables there.
I've been asked this question a lot recently, and I think that what we have seen is voter turnout statistics that are essentially in decline, and the suggestion that because the number of registered voters appears there are not a lot of people participating based on that voter turnout is lower, it's getting lower, and that there is a generalized apathy. I am uncomfortable with both of those concepts because they're not really verifiable. The reality of the situation is that we have very bloated electoral lists in the Caribbean, and as time passes with every election, the list will become more and more bloated. simply because administratively they're not being maintained in the way that they should. It's a quantum jump to go from that to say that a lot of people are not voting. You had a re-registration or a list cleaned up in 2013 in Grenada.
Enumeration,
13% of the people who were on the list were shed. And the next election, there was an apparent increase in the voter turnout. And that had absolutely nothing to do with the performance of government or people's interest in voting. It had everything to do with the fact that the list was cleaner. St. Kitts and Nevis, I participated in an exercise there in 2010. We threw off 20% of the list from people who had died, migrated, all kind of thing, and they were off the list. And there was an apparent increase in the electoral turnout, and was suggesting that almost 80% of people were participating in that election. And it had nothing to do with any government. It had to do with the fact that the list was cleaner. The same thing happened in Antigua recently. So I just think that we need to be careful and assume that because what we are seeing is the administrative untidiness and the lists across the region are extremely dirty and they're extremely bloated, that it appears as though people are not participating. No, there are a few people who are not participating, and I've done some excellent research, if I say so myself, in Barbados, among some of those people who had not participated. It's a small number, but they have various reasons for not participating. I think that instead of us on programs like this jumping to conclusions about people's non-participation, we ought to do more of this type of research.
To understand why. To understand why.
To understand whether first, and then secondly, to understand why. And I think that we would find out that the weather is probably more important. And a lot of people, it's not a lot of people we're talking about that are not voting. So that puts this whole question of that thing in perspective. In terms of the way forward, and these are my closing remarks, I think that we are in an exciting period. I think that the two-party situation in Grenada ultimately will survive, but I think that there will be some level of disruption on this occasion from the movement. I do believe that it will settle down on the next term, regardless of what happens. And my sense is that an election sooner rather than later, certainly if what Ms. Simon is saying is to be believed, an election sooner rather than later will be good for both political parties. And I'm anxious to see what happens as the year passes. But thanks for the invitation. I was happy to participate, and hopefully we can revisit some of these issues as the election draws closer.
Yes, absolutely. And as I said, the Bubb Report will be, and I hope you esteemed folks will be on the Bubb Report's election night panel. Ms. Simon, is that, or maybe you might be somewhere after, you know.
My emotions will not allow me. I can't do that with a straight face. I would, yeah.
Are you traumatized by past election experiences that your emotions?
No, I wouldn't say traumatized, but that's just how I am with any kind of results. If even if it's sports, and yeah.
Because you would recall that you also worked with Nazim Book, you know, during his own elections as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, okay. So, but Dr. Bridgman, I want to bring the question of voter apathy. I raised that with Peter as well. And again, Peter makes a very important point that you just can't assume that people are not turning out to vote or that there is a silent majority. But let us talk about really and truly, Dr. Bridgman, how the DPM intends, because I do believe that there is some degree of voter apathy in Grenada, right? You do have your animated members of both the NNP and the NDC base. I mean, I've never seen an NDC base as animated as they are these days, I have to say. Back from the Tillman Thomas days, it's so different now. But let us talk about that in respect of getting that voter turnout up, but also the DPM strategy. I know you may not want to say what your strategy is publicly, but in terms of treating with how you intend to. And of course, your other candidates, your other 7 candidates, when would those announcements come down?
Yes, and let me just say once again, thank you for the opportunity to.
Yes, sir.
And
thanks for accepting, of course. I know you're a busy man.
Yes, and I really like what you said at the beginning, what you're planning to do. You just reiterated the constituency conversations that you're going to be having with the parliamentarians. I really think we need to have more dialogue with each other, not just you're going to have the prime minister at one time, somebody else. I want people debates together. I think it's healthy for democracy. In terms of getting, I think voters in general, and especially Grenadians, they like to be asked for the vote. DPM has a lot of work to do. Going house to house, knocking on doors, telling people your why. Messaging is very important. You just can't take things for granted. I think so. My closing piece would be, we are going to go to your communities, your constituencies, and talk to people, listen. And politicians tend to just talk out and promises and give a T-shirt with something in the T-shirt. I think people are much more intellectual than that. To talk to them and ask them, what do you want? What areas you see in this constituency that need improvement? If you were to do that and engage people, I think at the end of the day, people will walk away saying, you know what? This person came to my house. This person listened to me. This person liked my ideas. Those kind of stuff. DPM has been doing that, and I think we need to do that some more. So if you want to engage people and find out the why, I think you'll get them. In anything we do in leadership, we may say that this person is disengaged, or this staff member, this team here. Find out, ask them question. What can we change differently? What would you like to see different for Grenada, for our constituency? If DPM continues to do that, they will stand a very good chance in terms of engaging people. And just in terms of a final piece on social media. Social media has changed politics in Grenada and throughout the region. Yes, in the past, where politicians were the ones giving us information, social media now has connected people. It's connected the diaspora to people on the ground. But there are some dark side with social media. We have people sharing it, saying something that's not true. The person then share it. This one becomes a WhatsApp group message. I think we have to move away from that piece and engage people more and educate people that we in terms of what the importance of it. If any political party is not using social media and using it well, they may not gain anything in terms of election. Elections now, people are not just going to show up at times in terms of platforms here and there. Your social media message needs to be something of importance.
Ms. Simon, over to you again. Voter turnout and based on what you've articulated earlier, a lot of the concerns that you said that the folks are expressing, that may actually turn into voter excitement, if you will, because people tend to be motivated, especially when they're disgruntled by something, right? You referenced the rural constituencies. So let us talk about, in your estimation, predicting what voter turnout would look like in the upcoming election. And on the question of social media, I honestly think this election, and I may go dark, but I think it will be a very dirty campaign, given the context of social media, given the context of artificial intelligence. I mean, one of my students showed me something very scary last week. That there is a particular app that can manipulate my voice, right? I mean, it's a scary time for all of these things. So let's get your thoughts, closing comments, Ms. Simon.
What I would say about voter turnout, and I cannot predict what voter turnout is going to be, I'm sorry. Yeah. But there is no generic reason for why there's a low voter turnout in my mind. Right? Because you hear all sorts of things. People, like you hearing now, people are not happy. The ones that are not happy with their administration, and that's the ruling administration, they're saying, I don't vote. I ain't voting again. So you hear that in different elections, depending on who is in office, who the incumbent is, and what you'd hear that, I don't vote. They're disappointed, and they'll say, I'm not voting. That's it. So that's one of the reasons. People didn't vote because they thought their party win already, and there's no need for them to give them that extra one vote, right? You hear things like that. I mean, there is a whole different situation. I remember, and I'll never forget it, that rally where NDC in 2013, I believe it was, at Pearls Airport, the last rally NDC had.
It was a huge crowd.
You couldn't see the end of the runway. It was filled with people. And as I understood it, even NNP, executive, the people, their strategists, and they got worried when they saw that crowd. If everybody was jumping up, yellow, went to vote, and their family and friends, and then NDC might have won the election. But quite a few of them did not vote. Some of them probably wasn't even registered to vote. So there are a lot of reasons why you have that. But I think one of the main reason is persons being disgruntled with their party, whichever one. and they decide, not just the incumbent in an election, sometimes even the opposition, they disgruntled with their party, and so they figure, it makes sense. I remember getting on the phone and calling people out to vote in 2018. And some would say to me,
National Democratic Congress at the time.
For the National Democratic Congress. And some of them would say,
friends,
said to me,
ex-friends.
Some of them are still my friends. They would say to me that I'm going to sit out this one. Just like that, plain. I'm going to sit out this one. So there are lots of reasons why that happened. And so we just have to wait and see. But Mr. Bubb, permit me, I need to deal with two things quickly. I'm not going to bring my data.
Please.
Because
the show has
Bridgman has really attacked my credibility. And as Simon says, no, that cannot happen. I don't speak without facts, but I cannot bring my facts on TAMCC on your program because it's a lot. And I didn't speak on TAMCC just for so. And I didn't blame the government, But what I said was, in the end, when I bring my facts, all of y'all could judge and say who and why. The fact is that a lot of students has dropped out, one. Secondly, most of it is because of all they have is a tuition. You have tuition, free tuition, and you can enter, but nothing else. You can purchase your uniforms, you can purchase your tools, you can purchase your equipment. Transportation is one of the biggest problems. Now, if you're not doing the walk on Thursday, you can pay $50 to get your certificate. And even the $50, students are telling the faculty and teachers that they don't have the money. There are members of management team in TAMCC who are calling up business places, asking for help for students to graduate, to pay, I think it's $375 to graduate. Because only 600 children are now there to graduate, to walk. And I'm hearing that from the school, that almost half of them might not walk because they cannot afford the graduation fee. So I have facts and I have many more. So I didn't come on here talking just so. And secondly, if the persons that went to the opposition calling the DPM name called it without the leader, the political leader knowing, then that's not my problem. That's theirs. Them to deal with that. But DPM name was called. They went to the opposition, and it was called. Let them figure out that.
Who was it? Who brought that information to you? Are you willing to say who that is now?
No.
Because we hear it from Dr. Bridgman that from
who
the
brought the information to me, or who went to the opposition?
Both. I will remind
Dr. Bubb,
who was it? Was it somebody on the executive of the DPM who did that?
I'm also known for not exposing my informants. So I want to thank you, sir, for having me on your program again. It's always a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure. Dr. Bridgman.
By the way, is it the government's, and I'm talking about government in general, is it the government responsibility to pay for graduation for all the kids in the tertiary education system?
No.
Okay.
No.
So
no. I wasn't saying that the government's supposed to pay. I am saying that the parents cannot afford to pay. But the government's supposed to create an environment so that people can live comfortably and be able to afford something like a graduation. That's all I'm saying. But I rest my case, Dr. Bridgman.
Okay. But the issue that
Dr. Bridgman, quickly.
No, the issue in terms of it was not an attack, Jenny. I'm trying to find the root causes of things. I don't like.
Oh, you got angry. Oh, it was an attack, and you said you didn't want to hear me. You don't want to hear me.
No.
Well, maybe that's your interpretation of it. I don't think you got angry.
But go Jenny, if you got that interpretation, I apologize. I've never, in terms of attacking anyone's character.
Yeah. I don't think Dr. Bridgman would get personal like that.
So that's all, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wickham, I know you're busy, sir. Mr. Wickham is probably in the region somewhere, preparing for another election. So thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for appearing on this week's edition of the Bubb Report, and we will see you for another installment. This will be our last political panel. Maybe before an election, who knows, Miss Simon? It might be the last one before the election. But we'll certainly have you all back again for another one, if in fact the election is called and we're going into carnival season. Folks, if you see me playing jab on the road in Grenada, when you see me, don't ask me anything about the Bubb Report. You may see me all buttoned up here, but when you see me on the streets in Grenada, don't clutch your pearls. I'm playing mass. All right, so that's it, folks. Thank you all, Ms. Simon. Thank you, Dr. Bridgman, for appearing on the Bubb Report this week. And folks, what we want to do as well is to let you know what we'll be doing next week. Next week, we'll be having a conversation around the Parliamentary Elections Office, who has the eligibility to vote, not about who has the right to vote. That fight has been fought by our forefathers, giving us the right to vote, but who is eligible to vote. And we are going to be examining the representation of the People's Act line by line. We are going to have representatives from the Parliamentary Elections Office. We'd also have a legal luminary, because in all of the conversations that has been had with respect to voting and eligibility for voting in Grenada, no one really spoke to the legislation that governs voting in Grenada, which is the representation of the People's Act. So, folks, we urge you next week. Next week's program will be our very last political program before we get into our carnival programming, because I think we all need a palate cleanser. No one references in all of the conversations that have been had, no one has referenced the legislation here, which is the representation of the People's Act. And I urge folks to read it. Don't rely on what your political leaders say, whether that's the ruling folks or whether that's the folks in the opposition. Let us rely on the act. And that is what we intend to do next week, to have the Parliamentary Elections Office here, as well as a legal luminary, to speak to what the legislation says, so that you know what your rights are. Your rights are not informed by your political leaders. Your rights are informed by the Constitution and what the Constitution articulates with respect to voting. So don't be late for that conversation. Mr. Pear of the Parliamentary Elections Office, who is the supervisor, that's Mr. Arthur Pear, who is the supervisor of elections. He will be here next week with a legal mind to speak to what the legislation says about that. So please stay tuned for that. And folks, again, I just want to finally make the point about this diaspora business and diaspora that, and who's diaspora coming down to vote and whatnot and whatnot. You all cannot assume that because somebody is aligned to one particular political party that they may be going down to Grenada to vote for that political party when an election calls, right? And there are many folks who live in the diaspora. And again, people have these conversations in absolutes without considering nuance. There are many folks who reside in Grenada, but who also spend time in the diaspora. There are many Grenadians who have one house in the US or Canada, and they also have property and business interests in Grenada as well. So are you saying that they are not qualified to vote, right? And so we're going to consider all of those things, including the question of what ordinarily resident means, and the documentation that needs to be provided, and what happens in the context of when you actually go to register to vote, what evidence you need to provide, and how the Parliamentary Elections Office, in fact, enforces those best practices around meeting that residency requirements and all of those things. So this has been the end of a very spirited program today. If you have not shared this program, at one point we had 630 people on YouTube. So for those of you over on YouTube, please just hit that like button. The more you hit that like button is the more that folks would have an opportunity to see that program. So right now, we have over on the YouTube page, let's see how many likes we have here. We only have 34 likes. If we can get those likes up to 100, I would really be grateful. For the 500 534 of you, well now 518 of you who are still on the YouTube page, just hit that like button, so that the algorithm can do its thing. Not forgetting our folks over on Facebook as well. Please do the same. So on behalf of the Bubb Report, on behalf of everyone who participated on the program today, I thank you as always. And we try to facilitate diverse discourse here. This is not a platform where we like only speaking to one side of an issue. All sides must be ventilated, and that's what we try to do. So on behalf of the producers of the show, I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellan Bubb. We'll see you next week for another installment of the Bubb Report. Take care. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. The Bubb Report is committed to being fearless, balanced, and independent, bringing you the stories that matter most without compromise. Now do us a favor. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. You can also watch us on GBN TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Catch us on WPG10 television every Sunday at 8 p.m. Your support helps us to keep journalism free from bias and influence. And together, we can make sure every voice is heard and every fact is verified. Thanks for watching.
Don't go there.
You are a technocrat. I mean, you can speak to whether or not it was appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur. Would you have done that as a permanent secretary?
Politicians get the information from wherever source that they can.
That's going to be the extent of your answer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
There's a lot of noise around the data protection bill that, in my respectful view, is not warranted.
I was one of those making noise, and it's simply because I was concerned about that specific section 33.
Don't go there.
Are you going to be offering yourself up as political leader of the party?
I see you've called me here for much more than diplomatic passports. I don't mind that.
Don't go there.
What is the relationship like between you and your leader, Dr. Mitchell, your boss, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm not sure how to explain how to answer this question at this time. I prefer not to answer.
Don't go there.
They said that you approached the bank for the loan before the election and that it only materialized after the election. There are also conflicting reports around the quantity of monies that were received. What is the reality here?
People try to extort the truth and to make all kinds of things about it. I just stay quiet. So if you notice, I was really and truly quiet about the whole matter.
Well, except with not with the New Today newspaper. The New Today newspaper reported on this, so I'm not sure you were quiet on this. Go ahead, Honorable. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, right?
Don't go there.
I think we just spoke at length about the regularization framework.
Prime Minister, let's talk about the workers who are dismissed.
The Bubb Report. We go there.